Chapter 1786. Rumble. There was a loud explosion of heaven and earth spiritual energy. A huge spatial crack suddenly appeared in the sky. Then, a figure with a majestic aura stepped out from it. Pavilion Master. The middle-aged man in the lead had a powerful aura that almost crossed the sun and moon. That terrifying aura was clearly above the Saint Marquis realm. It already had the fluctuations of a Saint King realm. Obviously, this person's comprehension had reached the Saint King realm. He had crossed the threshold between the Saint Lord realm and the Saint King realm. It was just that the power in his body was not enough, so he had not advanced to the Saint King realm. Even so, he could already display some of the power of a Saint King realm. Once the power in his body was enough, he would immediately advance to the Saint King realm. He hummed in a low voice, his eyes sweeping over the scene around him. Then he looked at the person in front of him and said, "Are you sure that there is a spatial crack in the true spill continent that can shake it open and leak out the aura of the fallen immortal land?" The Breeze Pavilion Master's eyes narrowed. Opening the passage from the hidden world to the true spill continent had cost the Breeze Pavilion a lot. The entire sex heritage was almost gone. If it weren't for the news that Elder Zhang and the others had sent, he would never have mobilized so many people. However, if this news was true, then it was great news for the Breeze Pavilion. It had to be known that in the hidden world, the competition for the immortal jade bones was very fierce. For a 6th grade sect like the Breeze Pavilion to stand out and obtain a large number of immortal jade bones was absolutely impossible. However, the secular land of the true spill continent was different. The people here were not worth mentioning to the Breeze Pavilion. To put it bluntly, if they wanted to slaughter all the powerhouses in this secular land, these people could only wait for death. In such a situation, wouldn't it be easy for them to obtain the immortal jade bones? There would be no interference at all. Yes. The old man who spoke earlier replied. We specially sent Marshal Nephew Zhang and the others to investigate. We are very sure that there is a space crack in the southern territory. If we can shake open that space crack, we will be able to obtain the aura of the land of the fallen immortals. At that time, we will be able to obtain a large number of immortal jade bones. The old man said with a certain expression, but soon he frowned again. But Marshal Nephew Zhang and the others disappeared after they sent the message. There hasn't been any reply for so long, so I don't know where they went. Even Yan, and the others are missing. After the people of the Cool Breeze Pavilion obtained the news of High Master Zhang, they immediately began to prepare to open the channel to the true spill continent. They had already left the Cool Breeze Pavilion, so they naturally didn't know that High Master Zhang and Song Yan's life tokens had already shattered. It's fine. Don't worry, Great Elder. The Breeze Pavilion Master said nonchalantly. With Elder Zhang's strength and cultivation, how could there possibly be anyone in true spill continent capable of doing anything to them? You don't have to worry too much. Marshal Uncle Zhang was severely taught a lesson by Yi Qianming, and was then framed by Luo Qingtong. Because he was afraid of being reprimanded by the sect, he did not dare to report this matter. Chapter 1787. The Great Elder nodded in agreement. He wasn't really worried that something would happen to Song Yan and the others. He was just saying it. Just as the Pavilion Master said, how could there be anyone in the true spill continent who could hurt Elder Zhang, a Saint General? That was simply a joke. After the Breeze Pavilion Master said that, he didn't bother about this matter anymore. Pavilion Master, let's go to the southern region immediately. The immortal jade bone is more important. As for Yan and the others, they should just be having fun for a while. They will come to find us soon. The Great Elder was very clear about his daughter's temperament. Spoiled and willful, he didn't know why she was pestering Elder Zhang. Elder Zhang would give face to her and let her do as she pleased most of the time. If she didn't contact him now, it was probably inconvenient for her to say it. Thinking about it, he didn't care anymore. The Breeze Pavilion Master nodded. Let's go. Everyone, let's go to the southern region. The group of people flew up in an instant and headed towards the southern region. And as they released their auras, the numerous powerhouses of true spill continent were all startled. What's going on? In the direction of the holy court of the Empire of Qin, They sensed the auras of the people from the breeze pavilion. In an instant, the Grand Supreme Dean's expression changed. How could there be so many powerhouses? The Grand Supreme Dean sensed that the auras of this group of people were extremely powerful, and there were so many of them. The weakest among them was a Saint Realm powerhouse, and there were thousands of them. Not good. When he sensed that they were heading in the direction of the southern domain, the Grand Supreme Dean jumped up in shock. He knew that Luo Qingtong had sent a message to Su Xiaoxiao and the others, asking them to go to the southern region to improve their strength. However, he didn't ask too much. From the looks of it, this little kid couldn't have found something incredible again, right? She had actually attracted so many people. If he didn't guess wrong, these people were most likely from the hidden world. Oh my God! It was possible to send a few powerhouses from the hidden world over here. There were so many of them, and they were so strong. Who knew how much effort it would take? What kind of good stuff did this lass get this time? This caused the people of the hidden world to go to war. Not only that, judging from their aura, strength, and numbers, they were at least from a 6th-class sect. Oh my God! The Grand Supreme Dean instantly ran out in a flurry. That evil Dr. Child and Ming Zun must hold on. Otherwise, he didn't want to have anything to do with the hidden world anymore. The Grand Supreme Dean had a bitter expression on his face as he hurried towards the southern mountain range. In the southern region, deep within the space at the bottom of the cliff, Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming met a monster that was much stronger than any of the monsters they had encountered before. Boom! The monster walked like a mountain. Its entire body looked like it was covered in iron armor. It had 5 heads. The fur on its body stood up like metal, making it look like a hedgehog. However, those hairs could instantly become as soft as whips. Boom! The moment it saw Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming, the monster rushed towards them. Qianming, help me hold the line. Luo Qingtong looked at the monster rushing towards them and licked her lips. Chapter 1788. The immortal jade bone's quality was higher and bigger than the ones Luo Qingtong had encountered along the way. Obviously, this monster was the strongest monster in the space at the bottom of the cliff so far. Luo Qingtong looked at its strength. Holy Lord Realm. She murmured. Very good. This monster was very strong. But she liked it. Swoosh! Luo Qingtong's figure swept up in an instant and rushed in the direction of the monster. As for Yi Qianxian, when she asked him to help her, the sleeves of his robe behind his back moved slightly. Boom! The aura around the man's body surged out in an instant and shrouded the rushing monster. It didn't hurt it, but it blocked all its escape routes. Roar! The monster felt Yi Qianxian's aura shrouding it, but it didn't feel any substantial damage, so it didn't care too much. Bang! It raised its feet heavily in an instant and stomped fiercely at Luo Qingtong, who was rushing toward it. Luo Qingtong naturally wouldn't fight with the strength of a Holy Lord Realm. She had hunted and obtained a lot of immortal jade bones along the way, so her strength had reached the level of a holy master. At this moment, she would use this monster to train and consolidate her strength. Swoosh! The bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered. Her figure seemed to be guided by something and constantly flashed back and forth around the monster. The arc of every movement was just right, so the monster's attack couldn't catch her. The monster was dizzy from her movements, and it roared angrily. At this moment, boom! Luo Qingtong unsheathed the life and death yin-yang sword in her hand and slashed at the monster. Bloody cross slash! As Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, in an instant, a beam of black and white light mixed with the blood-colored sword light formed a cross shape, flying forward in a whirling manner. Boom! The sword light slashed fiercely on the monster's body. In an instant, the monster was forced to take 2 steps back, but its body was unscathed. Obviously, this move's attack power was limited. Looks like I'll have to find another martial skill cultivation method to cultivate in the future. Otherwise, just this bloody cross slash alone is not enough. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. She had chosen to practice the Crimson Cross Slash when she had broken through to the Saint stage in the Saint King's tomb. She originally thought that it could be used for a long time, but she didn't expect that with the rapid growth of her strength, it was no longer useful. Swoosh! Seeing that the monster was attacking her again, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and jumped up again. She held her sword in front of her chest. Heaven-conquering art. Heaven-seizing move. As her voice sounded, a sword light as white as snow suddenly swept out in front of her and swept forward. That sword light seemed to have risen from the distant horizon. In an instant, it was as if the sun had suddenly appeared in the sky, as if dawn had broken. It was as if the sun had fallen from the sky, slashing horizontally towards the monster. Boom, boom, boom. The monster was instantly struck by Luo Qingtong's sword light and somersaulted violently. Chapter 1789. Gullies and abysses spread out from the place where its body had landed. The power of Luo Qingtong's attack was comparable to that of a holy lord. The monster's armor showed signs of cracking under Luo Qingtong's attack. It got up angrily, and the hairs all over its body shot toward Luo Qingtong. The hairs that looked like the spikes of a hedgehog all left its body in an instant and blasted toward Luo Qingtong. Seeing this scene, Yi Qianxian frowned slightly. The attack power of each of these hairs was comparable to that of a holy lord. Luo Qingtong might not be able to block 10,000 of them. He clenched his fists slightly and was ready to attack at any time. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's figure swept out. She rushed toward the monster in front of her in the face of the tens of thousands of hairs. Even a holy king would have to be on guard against the attack of these tens of thousands of hairs. However, for Luo Qingtong, she was least afraid of such a dense attack. As the saying goes, many ants can bite an elephant to death. However, Luo Qingtong was the elephant that was not afraid of being bitten by ants. Swish. The bloody pupils in her eyes were opened to the extreme. The blood-red light in her eyes seeped out and dyed the whites of her eyes red. Under the influence of this blood-red mist, everything in this world seemed to be just a foil for her. Boom. Luo Qingtong rushed toward the monster in the face of the hairs. The latter had just unleashed such a powerful attack, and the power around his body was at its weakest. Bang! Luo Qingtong waved the life and death yin-yang sword in her hand, and an annihilation was launched. The life and death yin-yang sword instantly turned into a death blade. The black sword light was like a rainbow, and it rushed straight toward the monster's core like the Grim Reaper reaping lives. Swish! Under Luo Qingtong's control, the huge immortal jade bone in its body was instantly pulled out by the long sword in Luo Qingtong's hand. In an instant, the monster let out an extremely sharp and ear-piercing roar. All the power in its body came from that immortal jade bone. Without that immortal jade bone, it was just an ordinary mutated monster. Under Luo Qingtong's sword light, it could not withstand a single blow. If it were anyone else, even if they knew that there was an immortal jade bone in its body, they would not be able to know where it was. They could only attack it forcefully until it was completely killed. Without the power of the immortal jade bone, these monsters were naturally unable to withstand a single blow. Swish! Luo Qingtong raised her hand to catch the immortal jade bone that flew into the sky. The monster screamed and tried to snatch it. But Luo Qingtong waved the sword light in her hand and directly destroyed it without the immortal jade bone as a source of power. Bang! The monster's body instantly exploded and fell to the ground. Chapter 1790. The immortal jade bone was the size of a fist, and its silvery gray hue was exceedingly obvious. Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up when she saw it. She'd only learned after hunting along the way that the higher the quality of an immortal jade bone, the deeper its hue. This meant that the more death and resentment it contained, the purer and greater the power within. The silvery white bead she'd first obtained actually didn't contain much power, which was why it had displayed such a hue. And at this moment, the immortal jade bone in Luo Qingtong's hand was so thick that it was almost dark gray. It was clear to see just how powerful and profound the power within was. Luo Qingtong had hunted so many immortal jade bones along the way, but none of them could compare to this one. Qianren, look. Luo Qingtong showed the immortal jade bone to Yi Qianxian, who nodded slightly. The immortal qi within this immortal jade bone is extremely rich. Moreover, it is much stronger than the previous ones. You'll be able to reach the Holy Marquis realm if you refine it. Just like the monster from earlier, it had been an ordinary monster beast, but after consuming the immortal jade bone, It had mutated and reached the Holy Marquis realm. However, it hadn't been able to refine the death energy within the bone. So it had become a mindless, bloodthirsty monster under the onslaught of death and resentment. However, Luo Qingtong was different. She could absorb the power of the immortal jade bone without any worries as long as she let the ancient heaven spirit would purify the power of the immortal jade bone. Luo Qingtong nodded and released the ancient heavenly spirit wood sapling. The latter immediately wrapped its branches and leaves around the enormous immortal jade bone as soon as it came out. It was obvious that it was overjoyed. The death energy and resentment within the immortal jade bone was a great supplement for it. After all, it was the death energy and resentment formed from the deaths of those Xenorace experts. It contained their remnant souls and willpower. Streaks of dark gray energy were absorbed by the ancient heavenly spirit wood. The color of the immortal jade bone's power became lighter and lighter. Soon it became pure white and transparent. At the same time, the ancient heavenly spirit tree swayed its 5 leaves and returned to Luo Qingtong's spatial ring in satisfaction. Its branches and leaves swayed in the wind, and it was obvious that the bud of the 6th leaf had already sprouted. Burp. Luo Qingtong watched its branches and leaves tremble violently, as if it had made a big burp, and then it disappeared in front of her. Her lips twitched, and she quickly turned her attention to the huge purified immortal jade bone in front of her. Qianren, I'll refine it first. Such a large immortal jade bone was enough to raise her power to the sacred Marquis realm. Luo Qingtong wanted to refine it immediately. Yes. Yi Qianxian nodded. I'll stand guard for you, he said in a deep voice. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded, and began to refine the immortal jade bone to raise her power. While she was refining it, Beiqing, Fengyu, and the others had already found the location of the hidden space. Master. The group appeared in front of Yi Qianxian and bowed. We've already explored that space. Should we go and close it now? Chapter 1791. The evil doctor was still improving her strength. Did they need to wait for her? There's no need. As if he knew what they were thinking, Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, She just killed a Saint Lord monster. Let her rest here. Although it seemed easy for this woman to deal with that monster, she had actually expended a lot of energy. What's more, if that space was really as he guessed, a passage to the outer realm opened by someone, it would be useless for her to go there. It would be better for her to have a good rest here. Yi Qianxian flicked his sleeves and said, Let's go. As he spoke, he waved his hand and a defensive light instantly descended from the sky, enveloping Luo Qingtong and an area of 100 meters around her. This was a defensive light condensed from Yi Qianxian's own aura. Unless one's strength was above his, no one would be able to break through this defense and hurt Luo Qingtong. Let's go. The group rushed in the direction of that space. At this moment, Luo Qingtong was completely immersed in the aura of the immortal jade bones. These immortal jade bones were really rare treasures. After the resentment and death aura of the dead were extracted and purified, all that was left was the life's cultivation essence and cultivation comprehension of the experts from the other regions. After their deaths, these auras condensed and did not dissipate. The most essential part formed the immortal jade bones. As Luo Qingtong refined and absorbed the power of these immortal jade bones, it was as if she had received the collective cultivation of these experts from the other regions. The realm comprehension and power essence flowed into her body endlessly, automatically driving the aura in her body to circulate. The circulation of these auras was the path of advancement that the experts from the other regions had explored before. Under the guidance of these auras, Luo Qingtong's strength broke through one barrier after another without any hindrance and continued to rise. The aura around her surged violently. The pure power of the immortal jade bones attracted many monsters that were drooling with desire. However, before they could get close to Luo Qingtong, they were shattered by the power of Yi Qianxian in the light circle. At this moment, those monsters no longer dared to get close to Luo Qingtong. They only dared to watch from afar. After an unknown period of time, boom boom boom. The aura around Luo Qingtong suddenly exploded. The energy in her body shot out rapidly and broke through the light circle that Yi Qianxian had enveloped her. Roar. Sensing that the layer of terrifying power around her had disappeared, the monsters that were watching from afar immediately charged towards her. Bang! They stomped heavily on the ground, causing the ground to tremble. The entire ground made a rumbling sound as if it was about to collapse. Under the vibration of the sound, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly opened. Saint Lord! The aura around her body shook violently. Then with a boom her body shot up. Life and Death Yin-Yang Sword. With the black and white sword in her hand, Luo Qingtong raised her hand and waved it. Boom boom boom. The monsters in front of her were all sliced into pieces by this sword. Blood rained down from the sky and mincemeat flew everywhere. Chapter 1792. Qianren isn't here? Luo Qingtong glanced around. She put away the immortal jade bones and thought that Yi Qianxian should have gone to the sealed space with Bei Qing and the others. Seeing that she was in the middle of a breakthrough, he didn't call her? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows slightly, then a faint enchanting smile appeared on her lips. Since that's the case, I'll go back first. Yi Qianxian and the others shouldn't need her. It just so happened that she had obtained a batch of immortal jade bones of very pure quality. She could take them back to improve her grandfather's strength. When Yi Qianxian and the others were done, they should come out directly. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she immediately got up and rushed towards the outer area. At this time, in the sky above the southern region, swish! One figure after another suddenly appeared in the sky. This is... A group of people from the Breeze Pavilion appeared in the sky above the southern region. They were shocked to see the shattered scene of the southern region. They weren't surprised by the destruction of the southern region. They were surprised by the scene of destruction, as well as the aura that was faintly mixed in. It's the aura of the land of the fallen immortals. Everyone was pleasantly surprised. In the hidden world, they had seen countless times when the aura of the land of the fallen immortals became violent and the immortal jade bones erupted. Naturally, they knew what was going on in the southern region. They were all excited. Haha, I didn't expect that we didn't need to do anything. The space crack actually split open by itself. It looks like the immortal jade bones have already erupted and landed here. Let's go, let's look around. The group of people from the Breeze Pavilion was ecstatic. They didn't expect that they would be so lucky to encounter the eruption of the southern region's heaven and earth spiritual energy. Looking at the situation, the immortal jade bones should have already erupted. At that time, no one in the true Spill continent would be able to compete with them for the immortal jade bones. These things would all belong to them. When they returned to the hidden world, their Breeze Pavilion's reputation would surely soar, and their strength would rise to another level. After all, this immortal jade bone could be exchanged for many good things. Not to mention, the more immortal jade bones he had, the more rewards he could obtain from the land of the fallen immortals. That place was a treasure trove. Everyone was overjoyed. However, within the group, there was one person who was unhappy from beginning to end. Senior brother Lanyue, what's wrong? A disciple of the Breeze Pavilion looked at him and asked. I'm fine. Yin Yuju shook her head. She looked forward and frowned slightly. He hoped that after the sect obtained the immortal jade bone, they would immediately leave the true Spill continent and return to the hidden world. Otherwise, she thought about how Song Yan had always been against Luo Qingtong, and how the Great Elder was accompanying the sect this time. He was really afraid that the other party would allow Song Yan to do something that would harm Luo Qingtong. Luckily, when they arrived at the true Spill continent, Song Yan and the others hadn't appeared. Yin Yuju also relaxed. As long as he quickly obtained the immortal jade bone and returned to the hidden world, he should be fine, right? As he was thinking, the Breeze Pavilion disciple beside him continued to speak. I say, senior brother Lanyue, are you thinking about that girl called Luo Qingtong? Don't take things too hard. Let me tell you, junior sister Song Yan likes you. That's a good thing that many people can't even ask for. Chapter 1793. You have to know that our Breeze Pavilion is a 6th class sect. In the true Spill continent, many people want to enter but can't. Don't be stupid. Moreover, even if you want a beauty and not strength, you have to think about that young girl called Luo Qingtong, right? She can't withstand the great elder's anger. If you really don't want to marry junior sister Song Yan, I'm afraid the great elder will immediately send people to kill her. At that time, you won't be able to stop him. The words of this Breeze Pavilion disciple made Yin Yuejua's mouth full of bitterness. I know, his voice was difficult. He would no longer have any thoughts about Luo Qingtong. In fact, when he knew that Luo Qingtong and Blackfield Mingzun were in love with each other, he had already completely given up on her. He couldn't compare to Blackfield Mingzun. Not to mention, he still had the shackles of the sect. Thinking of this, Yin Yuejua felt sad. But that Breeze Pavilion disciple didn't care at all. Senior brother, it's good that you can think it through. But that young girl called Luo Qingtong and junior sister Song Yan are like heaven and earth. Before he could finish speaking, he saw Yin Yuju's gaze sweep over and instantly shut his mouth. But he was muttering in his heart. He also couldn't understand Yin Yuejua. She clearly had a great future in the Breeze Pavilion, but she didn't want junior sister Song Yan, and liked a young girl from the secular world. She didn't even know if she could bear the price. Not to mention anything else, if she angered the great elder, that young girl called Luo Qingtong and her clan would be completely annihilated. He muttered in his heart, and rushed out with the group. Yin Yuejua's heart was heavy, because the group of Breeze Pavilion people had seen the violent aura of the land of the fallen immortals in the hidden world. They quickly followed the traces and found the mountain range at the bottom of the cliff. At this time, Grandfather Luo, Su Yu, and the others were constantly hunting monsters in the space at the bottom of the cliff. They divided up the work and attacked in an orderly manner. Tianxia and the Luo clan's disciples formed their own small teams and constantly moved around the space at the bottom of the cliff, looking for the monster that had swallowed the immortal jade bone. The team formed by Su Xiaoxiao, Little Overlord Yuan, and the others began to slowly approach the depths due to their tacit understanding. However, they remembered Luo Qingtong's words and didn't dare to go too deep. They only dared to lure one or two more powerful monsters to hunt at the edge. Just as the group was busy working, Shua. At this moment, several figures flew into the sky above the cliff. Is there someone down there? The people of the Breeze Pavilion, who were overjoyed because they had found the place where the immortal jade bone had erupted, were shocked when they discovered that there were people at the bottom of the cliff. Furthermore, they were hunting those monsters. The pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion, in particular, had a stormy look on his face. They had paid a huge price to come here. But someone had beaten them to it? All of these people had to hand over everything they had obtained. Surround them for me. The pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion coldly shouted. Don't let a single one go. Have them hand over all the immortal jade bones. Yes. Chapter 1794. At the same time, in the space at the bottom of the cliff, Grandfather Luo and the others also noticed that something was wrong above the cliff. Why are there so many powerhouses? Seeing the people from the Breeze Pavilion flying down, Old Man Luo and the others were shocked in an instant when they saw their majestic auras. Where did these people come from? Why were their auras so strong? Su Yu, immediately send a message to Tong Tong and the others. Tell them to get ready. Grandfather Luo's face was stern. They didn't care about so many powerhouses, but they had to tell Luo Qingtong and the others to get ready. However, just as he finished speaking, Su Yu's voice sounded. Grandfather, it's not good. The young girl's face was solemn. Her face was as cold as jade, like that of a noble young master, but it was filled with a solemn and dignified expression. I can't send a message. Master and the others are too deep. The fluctuations of heaven and earth spiritual energy are too violent. In her hand, the light of a message was shattered before it could take off. It was clear that she couldn't find the target's aura. What? Elder Luo's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, the figures of the people from the Breeze Pavilion appeared in the space at the bottom of the cliff. Everyone, get out here immediately. Their auras spread out and shrouded the outer area of the space at the bottom of the cliff. Grandfather Luo and the others' figures were all locked in. Boom. Their auras were like rainbows as they directly sealed off the outer space at the bottom of the cliff. After all, the heaven and earth spiritual energy fluctuations in the depths were too violent. Their auras simply couldn't reach in. However, it was enough to seal off the outer space. In the eyes of the people from the Breeze Pavilion, it was already a miracle that these people from the True Spill continent could hunt some monsters in the outer space. Did they want to go deeper into the space? The monsters inside were not something they could deal with. Even they would have to spend a lot of effort to deal with the monsters in the depths. Otherwise, why would they bring so many people out this time? Naturally, it was to prevent any accidents. After all, every time the heaven and earth spiritual energy erupted in the land of the fallen immortals, the monsters that were born were many times more powerful than usual. Old Master Luo and the others were chased out of the room. Their expressions were grave as they did not know what was going on. Where exactly did these people who were clearly around the Saint Realm, or even stronger, come from? The group was driven to the bottom of the cliff. There, the pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion, the Grand Elder, and the others were waiting. Yin Yuju, who was standing not far behind them, immediately saw Old Man Luo and was instantly shocked. Master Luo, Empress Dowager Yin Shi. He looked at Old Master Luo, Empress Dowager Yin Shi, and the rest in shock, as well as the disciples of the Luo clan. Then he saw Su Xiaoxiao, Little Overlord Yuan, and the others. He didn't know Su Yu and Tian Xia, but he guessed that they must be related to Luo Qingtong. In an instant, he sucked in a sharp breath. Pavilion Master. Before the Pavilion Master of the Breeze Pavilion and the others could say anything, he hurriedly stepped forward and said, "They are all friends of mine. I hope that the Pavilion Master and the elders can give them a way out." "Friends, you know?" The cool Breeze Pavilion Master looked at Yin Yuju with narrowed eyes. Chapter 1795. Since he knew these people, it was not impossible for him to be lenient. After all, the Breeze Pavilion Master only wanted the immortal jade bones. Thinking of this, the Breeze Pavilion Master was about to speak. At this moment, a voice suddenly drifted over from the group. "Friends, I'm afraid it's more than that, right? Junior brother Yenyue, are these people all from the Luo clan?" A Breeze Pavilion disciple who usually did not get along with Yenyue said sarcastically. He raised his hand and pointed at the Luo clan. Among them, there were quite a few people wearing the Luo clan's uniform with the word Luo embroidered on their chests. Hearing this, Yenyue's expression instantly changed. At this moment, the Great Elder's voice also rang out coldly. "Luo? The Luo from Luo Qingtong?" His gaze was as sharp as a knife, and he fixed his gaze on Old Master Luo and the others. The Great Elder was very angry with Luo Qingtong. An ignorant woman from the secular world actually dared to snatch his Er's husband. She should see if she had the qualifications to do so. Now that he knew that Old Master Luo and the others were from the Luo clan, and saw how Yenyue could not wait to help them out, his expression instantly turned extremely cold. "Don't let any of these people off easily. Make them hand over all the immortal jade bones they have, then break their legs and throw them out." "Great Elder!" Yenyue spoke out in a hurry, but was fiercely shouted back by the Great Elder. "Shut up. Yenyue, our Breeze Pavilion does not have any traitors. Why don't you try pleading for them again?" The Great Elder's eyes were filled with killing intent. If Yenyue dared to plead for these people again, he would immediately kill them all. He would let her know the consequences of disobeying him. How dare he help his sweetheart in front of me so blatantly? Did he think that he was dead? Great Elder. Yenyue's heart was extremely anxious. At this moment, the Great Elder had already fiercely raised his hand. "Search. Take out all the immortal jade bones they have." "Yes." The people of the Breeze Pavilion responded and rushed toward Old Master Luo and the others. When Grandfather Luo and the others found out that these people were from the Breeze Pavilion, and that they were here for the immortal jade bone, their expressions changed. Not because of anything else, but because of the immortal jade bones that they had just obtained, and the immortal jade bones that Lu Qingtong had purified for them. Those celestial jade bones must not be discovered by the people of the Breeze Pavilion. With that thought in mind, everyone immediately prepared to break out. You still want to resist? Then kill them all." The Great Elder's face was ice cold. He didn't like these people in the first place. Since they didn't know what was good for them, he would just kill them all. In any case, to them, killing some people from the secular world was just like stepping on a few ants. Even if these ants were relatively stronger, it was still the same. Yes. When the Breeze Pavilion's people heard the order, the aura around them changed instantly. They became murderous. Old Master Luo. Seeing the people of the Breeze Pavilion rushing toward Old Master Luo and the others, Yenyue made up her mind. Then she jumped out and stood in front of the people of the Breeze Pavilion. Great Elder. She said to the Great Elder, I am willing to go back and marry junior sister Song Yan. From now on I will be loyal to her. Please let them go, Great Elder. Chapter 1796. He glanced around and saw something not far away. What's this? The Great Elder's eyes narrowed slightly. He raised his hand and pulled the thing in front of him. Then his eyes suddenly widened, and they became round and round in an instant. This is. While he was in shock, a gust of wind swept past and snatched the thing in his hand. Immortal Jade Bone. A purified immortal jade bone. The Breeze Pavilion Master's eyes were filled with shock. He looked at the immortal jade bone in his hand. The latter was exquisite and translucent, sparkling and bright. It looked like a high-quality glass bead. The Breeze Pavilion Master and the others had seen countless immortal jade bones, but they had never seen one like this one. It was brimming with an incomparably pure aura. The power inside could clearly be absorbed. What did it mean to be able to absorb the power of the immortal jade bone? Everyone was overjoyed. Ha! Good. Tell me, where did this immortal jade bone come from? At this moment, the Breeze Pavilion Master could no longer care about First Elder and Yenyue. His gaze was fixed on Elder Luo and the others. These immortal jade bones were discovered by them first. They definitely knew the origin of these immortal jade bones. As for Old Master Luo and the others, their expressions had completely changed when the First Elder picked up the purified immortal jade bone. Oh no, they were still discovered by the other party. It must have fallen during the confrontation just now. Everyone's expression was grave. They quickly gathered together and stood back to back. They did not respond to the Breeze Pavilion Master's words at all. As for Yenyue, when the Breeze Pavilion Master called out that it was a purified immortal jade bone, her heart went cold. With a purified immortal jade bone, Elder Luo and the others would probably not be able to escape this calamity. Yenyue knew that a purified immortal jade bone had never appeared before. Now Elder Luo and the others were all here. Only Luo Qingtong was missing. Obviously, this thing had something to do with the other party. Thinking of this, he made up his mind. Elder Luo, hurry up and leave. I'll stop them first. He transmitted his voice to Old Master Luo and the others. The latter and the others were shocked. Falling Moon Jade. Old Master Luo frowned. Let's go. Yenyue urged anxiously. Don't worry, I'll be fine. The Breeze Pavilion Master and the others didn't get a reply from Old Master Luo and the others. When they saw how resistant they were, their faces instantly darkened. Capture them all and torture them one by one. I want to see if their mouths are all so tough. The Breeze Pavilion Master's eyes were malicious. The Great Elder also had the same idea. When he heard this, he immediately waved his hand and ordered the surrounding people to attack. Everyone from the Breeze Pavilion rushed towards Old Master Luo and the others. The aura around each of them almost shattered the heavens. Old Master, leave quickly. Yenyue fiercely pushed Grandfather Luo and the others, then rushed towards the people of the Breeze Pavilion, wanting to stop them. Seeing this, the First Elder's face was filled with anger. Falling Moon Jade. Bastard. His voice was vicious. Break his arms and legs, cripple his strength, and bring him here. Since the other party was bent on helping these people of the Luo family, then he would cripple his strength. Let's see how he would help then. Chapter 1797. You're really shameless. He said coldly. That's right. A disciple of the Breeze Pavilion beside him said in agreement. Junior sister Song Yan is such a good person, yet Yenyue doesn't even like her. Instead, he likes a woman from the secular world, and even disregards his sect for her. First Elder, He really wasted our Breeze Pavilion's nurturing. The one who spoke was the Breeze Pavilion disciple who didn't get along with Yin Yuju. Hearing this, the first elder's expression became even gloomier. Beat him up ruthlessly. As long as you don't beat him to death, do whatever you want. Yes. The group of Breeze Pavilion people responded and rushed towards Yin Yuju without any hesitation. Similarly, they were filled with murderous aura. Yin Yuju, Grandfather Luo and the rest originally thought that Yin Yuju would be fine as he said, but they discovered that it wasn't the case at all. Seeing the Breeze Pavilion people rushing towards Yin Yuju, Su Yu and the rest suddenly steeled their hearts. Protect Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi first, they said to the Luo clan disciples. Then their figures flashed and rushed towards Yin Yuju. Su Xiaoxiao, Little Tyrant Yuan and the rest were in front, while Su Yu and Tian Xie's group were behind. Yin Yuju. Swoosh. A group of people appeared beside Yin Yuju, and Little Tyrant Yuan fiercely pulled Yin Yuju. With a boom, the skin all over his body became as hard as iron and stone in an instant. It could be soft and hard. Bang. Following the first attack, Little Tyrant Yuan and Yin Yuju forcefully withstood the attack and fiercely retreated. Then Sima Ju, Ling Tianhan, and Ling Yu immediately rushed forward and blocked in front of them. Myriad Poison Barrier. Boom. The black aura around Sima Ju's body fiercely spread. The poison in his body spread out like a fog, dyeing his surroundings pitch black. At the same time, Ling Tianhan and Ling Yu both fiercely unsheathed their weapons. Mother and son twin swords. Purple Heaven Sash. In the pitch black fog, the two people's weapons, one silver and one purple, flew out in an instant and blasted towards the Breeze Pavilion disciple who was preparing to attack again. Their weapons were in front, while Chu Wenhao and Ling Tianxin's weapons were at the back. Shua. Their weapons were hidden in the black canopy of poisonous gas, and they could not be seen at all. At this moment, Su Xiaoxiao, who was standing behind them, was spinning her fingers rapidly. Countless medicinal herbs flowed through her hands like flowing water. After which, she concocted a medicinal liquid that could detoxify and strengthen Sima Ju's poison. Then she waved it in the air. Among them, the liquid that automatically stuck to their bodies was the antidote, while the liquid that directly evaporated into the air was the liquid that strengthened the poison. Under the control of her medicinal liquid, Sima Ju's 10,000 poison body was unleashed to the extreme, and the poison barrier was strengthened by several times. As for those who were attacking them, they not only had to defend against the poison barrier's attack, they also had to defend against Ling Tianhan and Ling Yuer's attacks. It was simply impossible to guard against them. The moment Su Xiaoxiao's medicinal liquid evaporated, the Breeze Pavilion disciple who was about to mobilize the energy in his body to attack was caught off guard, and the energy around him suddenly stagnated. Chapter 1798. Bang. The group of people cooperated well, and killed a disciple who had surpassed the peak of the Saint Realm in an instant. What? The disciples of the Breeze Pavilion were shocked. They had not taken Su Xiaoxiao and the others seriously before this. After all, the cultivators in the secular world could not be compared to them. Moreover, Su Xiaoxiao and the others had just entered the transcendent Saint Realm. It seemed like they had just advanced not long ago, and their aura and strength had not stabilized yet. They did not expect them to be able to kill someone who had surpassed the peak of the Saint Realm. Even if they had worked together to kill the disciple, their combat strength was still very shocking. Moreover, they had killed the disciple in an instant. Did this not mean that every one of them had the strength to kill an expert who had just entered the transcendent Saint Realm in an instant? Everyone was shocked. Su Yu and the others went up to a Breeze Pavilion disciple, who was at the peak of the Saint Realm. Form the formation. Su Yu shouted coldly. The heavenly diabolism and the others behind her instantly formed a large formation. Everyone was standing in their own fixed positions. No matter how they moved, the formation remained the same. Boom. Following Su Yu's action, everyone's attacks swept out in an instant. Under the effect of the formation, they gathered together and strengthened their strength to the level of a Saint Realm expert. Then with a boom they attacked the Saint Realm disciple of the Breeze Pavilion. Before the latter could react, he was hit by the attack, and his figure instantly retreated backward. Bastard! The Breeze Pavilion disciple's face was filled with anger. He was a core disciple in the Breeze Pavilion. Whether it was in the Breeze Pavilion or in the hidden world, his status was not weak. At this time he was suddenly attacked by Su Yu and the others, and obviously suffered some injuries. Suddenly he was very angry in his heart. He moved his body and was about to rush towards Su Yu and the others when they stopped attacking. However, he didn't even have the time to leap up. Roar! A ferocious roar of a beast suddenly rang out at this moment. Purple fur flew in the air. A violent lightning beast suddenly appeared behind him. With a smack, it raised a huge palm that was like a cattail leaf fan and slapped his head off. The Saint Realm expert did not even have time to react before his head was separated from his body. After all, a violent lightning beast's combat strength was more than twice its previous strength. This lightning beast's strength was similar to Su Yu's, but its strength after it went berserk, it was comparable to a Saint Realm expert at the peak. Moreover, it had launched a sneak attack, so it succeeded in one strike. Bang! After killing that disciple of the Breeze Pavilion who was at the peak of the Saint Realm, the lightning beast immediately raised its head and roared. After that, it stomped its feet and appeared behind Su Yu, squatting obediently by her side. Well done, little lightning beast. Su Yu's eyes, Su Yu's lightning. The enlarged thunder beast was no longer the same as when it was in her arms. Right now she was only as tall as its ankle. Roar! The thunder beast roared happily, its voice shaking the heavens. What? The members of the Breeze Pavilion were even more shocked. The strength of this group didn't conform to the situation in the mortal world at all. How could they be so strong? Chapter 1799. What was going on? Since when did such powerful cultivators appear in the mundane world? And from the looks of it, these people looked so young. Why hadn't they received any news about such talented and powerful geniuses? Damn it! That bastard Zhang Diyu. What exactly is he hiding? The Breeze Pavilion master clenched his fists fiercely at this moment, his expression extremely ugly. The strength of Su Xiaoxiao, Little Overlord Yuan, and the others, as well as Su Yu and Tianxie's group, had completely exceeded their expectations. With such talent and strength, it was impossible for them to not know anything. The Breeze Pavilion master was almost furious when he thought of how Martial Uncle Zhang had cancelled the 4 academies' grand meeting. He must have hidden it from them. That bastard Zhang Diyu had actually let them miss such important information for his own selfish reasons. However, the Breeze Pavilion master didn't know that they had missed more than just this piece of information. There was even more important information that they didn't know about. Pavilion master, these people must all be killed. The first elder's voice was grave. If it was said that he had wanted to kill Su Yu and the others because Yen Yuejua valued the Luo family, then this time, it was because of the terrifying potential and strength that Su Yu and the others had revealed. None of these people could be spared. Otherwise he and the others would definitely be harmed in the future. Of course. The Breeze Pavilion master's expression was also very gloomy. The strength and potential that Su Yu, Su Xiaoxiao, and the others had revealed made him very wary. Once these people grew up in the future, what kind of revenge would he and the others who had enmity with them suffer in the future? Whether or not we can obtain the method to purify the immortal jade bone this time, none of these people can be left alive. The Breeze Pavilion master's voice was cold and gloomy. Tell all the disciples below the Saint Realm to retreat. Have those above the Saint Realm act. Those above the Saint Realm were almost all elders and protectors. The Breeze Pavilion master's action could be said to be very important to Su Yu and the others. He was unwilling to let those below the Saint Realm take the risk. Yes, the members of the Breeze Pavilion complied. They had already recovered from the shock of Su Yu and the others' strength, and immediately retreated. On the other hand, the experts at the Saint Stage and above who were originally standing beside the Pavilion Master of the Cool Breeze Pavilion, and were prepared to watch the show all moved to surround Su Yu and the others. Pavilion Master, let me personally capture them. The Great Elder's voice was ice-cold. He was at the peak of the Saint General Realm, and was only one step away from the Saint Lord Realm. At that time, he would be promoted to Grand Supreme Elder, and have the same authority as the pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion. If he were to personally capture Su Yu, Su Xiaoxiao, and the others, it would be absolutely safe. This would also ensure that they would have enough survivors to interrogate about the matter of the purified immortal jade bones. All right. The pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion nodded coldly. Let the great elder do it. Hearing that, the first elder leaped up and charged towards Su Yu and Su Xiaoxiao. Seeing this, Yin Yuju's expression changed greatly. Not good. Run. Don't worry about me. His heart was heavy. The great elder's strength was not something that Su Yu and the others could resist. He had to stop the great elder. Although falling into the great elder's hands would be a fate worse than death, it was still better than suffering together with Su Yu and the others. Thinking of this, he was about to charge out. Chapter 1800. What do you mean we don't need to care? Who said we don't need to care? As this voice sounded, Su Yu, Su Xiaoxiao, and the others were pleasantly surprised. Master. Boss. The group of people looked at the young girl, who came out from the depths of the space at the bottom of the cliff with joy. Luo Qingtong was dressed in black. Her robe was stained with the blood of many monsters, making the color even darker. Coupled with her peerlessly beautiful face, she looked like a gorgeous Azura who had emerged from the depths of purgatory with a sword in hand. Her stunning charm could break one's soul. Qingtong. Looking at the stunning young girl who appeared in front of her, Yin Yuju's heart was filled with complex feelings. She was happy to see Luo Qingtong, but also worried and terrified. No matter what, he was partly responsible for what happened this time. If it weren't for him, Great Elder wouldn't be so hostile to Grandfather Luo and the others, and the discovery of the purified immortal jade bone wouldn't have happened. All of this danger was brought to Luo Qingtong by him. Including Song Yan's targeting of her before, Yin Yuju felt very guilty. He felt that he had let down Luo Qingtong. If it weren't for this, he wouldn't have risked his life to save Grandfather Luo and the others. Luo Qingtong? Great Elder was already prepared to fly over to capture and kill Su Yu and the others. At that time, he could just leave a few alive to interrogate and kill the rest. However, before he could fly over to Su Yu and the others, Luo Qingtong appeared. Thinking that the other party was the one who made Yin Yuju ignore his daughter, Great Elder's face instantly turned cold. Then I'll kill you first. Great Elder changed direction and slapped towards Luo Qingtong. Seeing this, Su Yu, Su Xiaoxiao, and the others' faces changed. Master Boss, be careful. After everyone's joy, they shockingly found that Luo Qingtong was actually alone. Ming Zun wasn't by her side. Everyone became anxious when they saw this. Great Elder was at the peak of the Saint General realm. How could Luo Qingtong be his opponent when she was alone? Master. Boss. Su Yu, Su Xiaoxiao, and the others all rushed over without a care for anything. Yin Yuju's face also changed, and she rushed over to help. However, it was too late. How could their speed catch up to the peak of the Saint General realm? And his martial arts talent was extremely poor, so it was almost impossible for him to cultivate to a very powerful level. But it just so happened that he met Luo Qingtong. The girl opened the door to a new world for him, letting him know that his trashy soul seal was actually very powerful. Based on the theory Luo Qingtong told him, little Tyrant Yuan played with his petrification soul seal like a hot stove. His defense could be hard or soft. With Luo Qingtong's help, his strength also advanced by leaps and bounds, completely shaking off his previous title of trash. At this moment he was blocking in front of Luo Qingtong. He was already staking his life. After all, with Great Elder's strength, even if his petrification soul seal was 100 times more powerful, it still wouldn't be able to block it. But even if he couldn't block it, he still had to block it. Chapter 1801. Boss, let's go. Before he could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong's hand was already on his shoulder. Swing your fist. Luo Qingtong's voice was indifferent, and she didn't even look at First Elder's attack. Little Tyrant Yuan's brain couldn't wrap itself around it. However, even if his brain was stuck, his body still instinctively followed Luo Qingtong's instructions. In his mind, Boss's words were never wrong, and he had to obey. Boom. Little Tyrant Yuan's fist directly flew over. Before he could react, there was an instant bang. He felt as if his fist had hit something, and then the other party was sent flying. What? Little Tyrant Yuan was slow to react, and his face was full of confusion. After he sent the other party flying, he suddenly realized that the only person who could be sent flying by his fist at this time and place could only be. His gaze couldn't help but move up, and then he saw the face of the unknown object he sent flying. It was the Breeze Pavilion's first elder. Heavens, he actually sent a peak sacred general expert flying with a single punch. Little Tyrant Yuan's mouth was wide open, and he was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth, and his eyes were wide open. Su Yu and the others also rushed to Luo Qingtong's side at this time. Boss, Master, Qingtong. Yen Yuejue was the furthest away, and was the last to arrive, but at the same time, he was also the most shocked. First Elder was sent flying with a single punch. He looked at the scene of First Elder falling from the sky in shock, completely clueless as to what was going on. Su Yu and the others also noticed this scene after discovering that Luo Qingtong and Little Tyrant Yuan were fine. Instantly, everyone was shocked. Boss. Little Tyrant Yuan was so shocked that he stuttered. Aye, you've sent a Saint General flying. This is very good. You did well. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She placed her hand on Little Tyrant Yuan's shoulder, and gently patted him twice. In fact, that first elder was sent flying by Luo Qingtong. She directly shattered the other party's attack through Little Tyrant Yuan's body, and even suppressed the other party's aura, which allowed Little Tyrant Yuan to easily send First Elder flying with a single punch. Boss, you did it, didn't you? Little Tyrant Yuan's eyes lit up. He wasn't a fool. There was such a huge difference in strength between him and the Great Elder. Even if he immediately increased his strength to the same level as the Great Elder, he might not be able to injure the Great Elder, let alone send him flying with a single move. All this could only be done by Luo Qingtong. However, even if it's boss did it's me? It feels as feel. Little Tyrant Yuan had a smug look on his face, and in the end, he even threw Sima Ju and the others a smug look. He knew there would be meat to eat by following boss. Everyone was speechless for a while, but at the same time, they were very curious about Luo Qingtong's strength. Boss, you were able to send that first elder flying with a single blow. Don't tell me your strength has already reached the sacred general realm? Si Wenhao asked curiously. Luo Qingtong's strength had always been stronger than those of the same level. Chapter 1802. Luo Qingtong looked at them with a faint smile, and didn't say anything. Holy General? If they were only holy generals, she wouldn't dare to be so arrogant. However, Luo Qingtong didn't expect that people from the Breeze Pavilion would actually appear here. She looked at First Elder, who was crawling up from the ground, as well as the Breeze Pavilion Master and the others not far behind him. First Elder crawled up from the ground at this time. The attack that Luo Qingtong had just sent out while controlling Little Overlord Yuan had injured him quite badly. He looked at Luo Qingtong with a very bewildered expression. He knew that it was impossible for that damn fatty to send him flying. So this was done by this young girl. Looking at Luo Qingtong's elegant and beautiful face that still showed her young age, First Elder's heart felt like it was going to explode. How could such a little girl send him flying with a single blow? How was this possible? First Elder didn't want to believe this even if he was beaten to death. He concluded that there must be someone behind Luo Qingtong. Nearby, there must be someone whose strength wasn't inferior to his, or even much stronger than him, secretly helping Luo Qingtong and the others. Thinking of this, First Elder's expression turned cold. If this was the case, it meant that the immortal jade bone, and even the matter of purifying the immortal jade bone, had already been known by others in advance. Your Excellency, he said coldly, his gaze sweeping all around. I don't know why you're helping these people, but if it's for the immortal jade bone, we can split it equally. We can even share the secret of purifying the immortal jade bone together. As long as you stop protecting these people. Otherwise, don't blame us for spreading the news. First Elder's expression was very cautious. He wasn't sure if the other party was just one person, or if a group of people like them had come. But in any case, the matter of purifying the immortal jade bone was definitely the other party's weakness. As long as he said that he would spread the news, even if the other party was stronger than them, they could only compromise. Otherwise, as long as one of them escaped, the matter of purifying the immortal jade bone would definitely be leaked. The Great Elder didn't believe that the other party had the strength to destroy them in an instant. If that was the case, the other party would have already made a move. There was no need to hide in the dark. Thinking of this, he felt much better. Not far behind him, the Breeze Pavilion Master and the others were also feeling very depressed. When the First Elder was blasted out, they were also shocked in their hearts. Then they came to their senses. When they heard the Great Elder's words, none of them objected. After all, this matter had already been discovered by someone else, and the other party was even in front of them. It seemed that the other party was not weak, so they could only share it with the other party. Otherwise, if this matter were to spread, no one would be able to get it. However, as they waited for the mysterious expert's response, all they got was Luo Qingtong's bell-like laughter. Amidst the crisp sound, there was a hint of evil and wanton. You don't have to look anymore. The mysterious expert you're looking for isn't here. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. The Great Elder's words made her understand the ins and outs of the matter. Immortal jade bone. Purified immortal jade bone? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. It seems that you know everything? Then all the more I can't let you go. If you cut the weeds without removing the roots, they would grow again when the spring breeze blew. After going through all the previous crises, Luo Qingtong would no longer leave any hidden dangers for herself. Chapter 1803. Luo Qingtong's face was ice-cold and her beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent. Cold light flickered in that pair of bright starry eyes as blood filled the air. You. The Great Elder looked at Luo Qingtong in shock. What did this woman mean? What did she mean by that mysterious expert wasn't here? The other party had just attacked them, and was clearly protecting Luo Qingtong and the others. How could they suddenly disappear? Moreover, this woman said that she wouldn't let them go. Could it be? The First Elder suddenly thought of a possibility, and his eyes instantly widened. You. He pointed at Luo Qingtong and couldn't say anything for a long time. After a long time he shouted, "You're that mysterious expert. How is this possible?" When the Great Elder said this, not to mention him, even the Cool Breeze Pavilion Master and the others were shocked. They felt that he was crazy. How could that young girl be the one who had just injured him? Luo Qingtong was clearly only 16 years old, and the person who had injured him was at least at the peak of the sacred general realm. Otherwise, it was impossible to send him flying with a single move. In this kind of situation, how could it be Luo Qingtong? But if it wasn't, how could it explain what Luo Qingtong had just said? Everyone's faces were filled with shock and bewilderment. Luo Qingtong was too lazy to pay attention to them. She looked at Su Yu, Su Xiaoxiao and the others and said in a deep voice, "Surround them. Don't let a single one go." Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. They wanted to steal the immortal jade bone? And they wanted her method to purify the immortal jade bone? Then she would let them come without leaving. Yes. Su Yu Tianxia, Su Xiaoxiao and the others all loudly responded. They looked in Luo Qingtong's direction, and their eyes were filled with excitement. Now that Luo Qingtong was back, they would have a backbone. This young girl was their only faith and light. If she fought, they would never retreat, even if he had to pay with his life. At this moment, Su Yu and the others didn't even consider whether or not Luo Qingtong was stronger than the people of the Breeze Pavilion, or how much stronger she was. They only knew that Luo Qingtong had told them not to let the other party off. Then they wouldn't let him go. Shua. Su Yu Tianxia's group and Su Xiaoxiao's group all rushed toward the Breeze Pavilion's group. Just a moment ago, they had been surrounded by the other party. Now they had turned around and surrounded the people from the Breeze Pavilion. This unforeseen event instantly caused the expressions of the Pavilion Master and the others to change drastically. They looked at the young girl with a wicked and enchanting smile, and for a moment, They couldn't wrap their heads around it. How was this possible? Luo Qingtong and the others were so bold? Could she really be the one who sent the Great Elder flying? On the other hand, the Great Elder was filled with anger. He couldn't believe that it was Luo Qingtong who did it. His arm was still numb. The other party's attack just now had almost crippled his entire arm. This kind of strength was at least in the Saint Lord realm. How could it be Luo Qingtong? Little slut, stop trying to scare us. This definitely wasn't done by you. The Great Elder's face was filled with anger. Since the person hiding in the shadows wanted to protect Luo Qingtong's group, it meant that the other party didn't have any confidence. Perhaps that attack just now was already her full strength, so Luo Qingtong wanted to scare them away. Humph! You think we'll be fooled like this? In your dreams. The Great Elder's face was ice cold. Since they had figured out the other party's background, they would make a move to end everything. Chapter 1804. Boom! The aura around him exploded, and his peak Saint General cultivation was revealed. Everywhere he passed, the surrounding space seemed to be cut apart and shattered into countless fragments. Along the way, the first elder seemed to carry endless killing intent and a fierce aura as he blasted towards Luo Qingtong. This attack was different from when he was dealing with Luo Qingtong, where he only used a little bit of strength. This time, he attacked with all his strength, and the aura around him was terrifying and mighty to the extreme. Qingtong. Yin Yuejue was with the Luo clan at this time. When the latter and the others saw that Luo Qingtong had returned, they protected Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi as they retreated. After all, they might be in even more danger if they left Luo Qingtong. If the Breeze Pavilion was driven to desperation and used them to threaten Luo Qingtong, it would be troublesome. The Luo clan had never worried that Luo Qingtong would lose. They had followed the eldest miss for so long, but they had never seen Luo Qingtong fight a battle she was not confident in. Seeing Su Yu and the others rushing towards the Breeze Pavilion, they also rubbed their palms together. Unfortunately, they had to protect Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi, so they could only give up on the idea of rushing out. Hearing Yin Yuejue's worried voice, a Luo clan disciple immediately said, "Young Master Ju, you don't have to worry. Eldest Miss will be fine." That's right. This first elder will only bring about his own destruction, Grandfather Luo said solemnly at this time. He looked at Yin Yuejue and said, "Young Master Yin Yuejue, I won't hide this matter from you. Actually, your Breeze Pavilion's people had attacked Tongtong before. In the northern region, Luo Qingtong had already killed all of them. This also included your junior sister and that martial uncle Zhang." Grandfather Luo told Yin Yuejue everything that Song Yan, martial uncle Zhang, and the others had done. If this was before, he would definitely not reveal this to avoid causing trouble for Luo Qingtong. But now, the people of the Breeze Pavilion had already come looking for him, and the grudge had already been formed. Naturally, he didn't care about this. Moreover, Yin Yuju did not hesitate to help them. He also felt that the other party had the right to know about this matter. Little junior sister and senior uncle Zhang actually did this? After Yin Yuju finished listening to Old Man Luo's words, her entire person was stunned. To think that Song Yan would target Luo Qingtong like this. Before he saw Song Yan, he was glad that she hadn't appeared. That way, the Great Elder and the others wouldn't target Luo Qingtong. Unexpectedly, the other party had already made a move on Luo Qingtong. Back in the northern region, Martial Uncle Zhang, a Saint General, had actually personally attacked Luo Qingtong. If Luo Qingtong's strength and talent were any weaker, wouldn't he have killed her? Yin Yuju felt unbearably guilty in her heart. At the same time, she was also extremely shocked. At that time, Luo Qingtong was already able to kill strong cultivators of the Saint General realm? Luo Qingtong, just how big is the gap between you and me? That young girl with a distant smile and an evil and enchanting charm was finally getting further and further away from him. And in this lifetime, he might never be able to catch up to her again. Yin Yuju looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong. The latter had already raised her hand and summoned the life and death duality sword. In front of her, the Great Elder's aura was crisscrossing and cutting. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. A bloody light was faintly discernible in the depths of her eyes, and it was condensed and cold. There were always some people who didn't know the difference between life and death, and came to challenge her temper and patience. Chapter 1805. Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you're strong? Sorry, but my strength is stronger than yours. Peng. The sword in Luo Qingtong's hand slashed out. In that instant, it almost split the heavens. Heaven and earth seemed to be torn apart by her sword, as if they were being torn apart by the vibrations. The Great Elder's attack was thoroughly suppressed by her sword. Bang! Luo Qingtong's sword was accompanied by countless space fragments. It crushed everything in its path, completely annihilating the Great Elder's attack. Then, under the First Elder's shocked and terrified gaze, the First Elder was sent flying with a heavy blow. Ah! The Great Elder miserably screamed as he flew backwards. In front of Luo Qingtong, his peak Saint General strength simply wasn't enough. The young girl's aura seeped out from her body, sharp and icy. Just the aura that was vibrating around her body was enough to shatter the countless space fragments that were flying towards her along with the aftermath of the collision into powder. They were annihilated around her like crystal powder. Saint Lord Realm, the Cool Breeze Pavilion Master, and the others all stared at Luo Qingtong with incomparable shock. They didn't even believe that Luo Qingtong was a Saint General, much less that she was a Saint Lord. How could she be so strong? In the mortal world of the True Spill continent, it was impossible for such a powerhouse to exist. The Saint Realm was already an extremely difficult peak to cultivate. After this, if one didn't go to the hidden world, they would be trapped in this realm forever, unable to increase their strength. Luo Qingtong was so young, how could she cultivate to such a level? With her strength, how could she cultivate so fiercely in such a barren land of the mortal world? Everyone was shocked. As for the severely wounded Great Elder, he spat out blood as he looked at Luo Qingtong with disbelief. She really was the one who attacked just now. How was this possible? Her strength, how could she be so strong? In the silent scene, the Great Elder fell to the ground. His internal organs had been shaken out of place. He lay on the ground, unable to move. He had been turned into a cripple by Luo Qingtong's sword. His robes had been torn apart by the crisscrossing sword energy, and even the hair on his head had been cut off. At this moment, his hair was disheveled, and the strength of his energy was constantly dissipating. My strength. My strength. The Great Elder lay on the ground, constantly howling in grief. Luo Qingtong's blood-red pupils had seen through his weak point. With a single sword strike, she had shattered his Dantian's energy and cut off all his meridians. At this moment, the aura of power that he had nowhere to release was constantly dissipating. In this life, unless he could find a heaven-defying treasure that could reconstruct his mortal body, or find a healer like Luo Qingtong who had blood-red pupils to heal him, otherwise he would never. Of course, Luo Qingtong wouldn't give him such an opportunity. Today no one from the Cool Breeze Pavilion will live. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She shook the long sword in her hand and coldly shouted, "Kill!" As soon as he said that, Su Yu and the others who'd surrounded the Breeze Pavilion's members shot towards the disciples below the saint stage with murderous intent. Chapter 1806. Pavilion Master. Seeing that the Great Elder had been sent flying by Luo Qingtong's sword, and had almost become a cripple, the upper echelons of the Breeze Pavilion were shocked. They looked at the Breeze Pavilion Master in front of them. The latter had already recovered from his shock. Looking at the aura around Luo Qingtong, he sneered. "Humph, a silly girl will always be a silly girl. She can't keep her cool." His face was cold. If Luo Qingtong hadn't taken the initiative to admit that she was the mysterious person, the Breeze Pavilion Master might have been afraid. After all, he didn't know who the other party was, how many people were in the dark, and when they discovered the secret of the immortal Jade Bone. Because of his desire to obtain the immortal Jade Bone, he couldn't touch the other party and could only compromise. Otherwise, the secret of the immortal Jade Bone might be leaked. But now Luo Qingtong actually took the initiative to admit that the mysterious person was herself. Haha! The Breeze Pavilion Master looked at where Luo Qingtong was and laughed. He waved his hand coldly and said to the higher-ups of the Breeze Pavilion beside him, "Surround her. I want to kill her personally." Since Luo Qingtong was the mysterious person, he had nothing to worry about. He would kill the other party directly, and all the secrets of the immortal jade bone would be his. As for Luo Qingtong, the Breeze Pavilion Master looked coldly at the aura around Luo Qingtong. This little girl was always like this. She thought that her strength as a holy lord was already very impressive. However, this strength was still not enough in front of him. Luo Qingtong was talented and monstrous, but she was still too inexperienced. She couldn't be so scheming. The Breeze Pavilion Master's face became colder and prouder as he thought about it. "Yes, Pavilion Master." The higher-ups of the Breeze Pavilion responded. Then, an elder said hesitantly, "Then these people." He looked at Su Yu and the others who were rushing toward the disciples of the Breeze Pavilion. These people had great teamwork, great strength, and extraordinary battle prowess. The disciples on his side might not be able to hold on. Don't worry about these people for now. We'll deal with them after we kill Luo Qingtong." The Pavilion Master of the Cool Breeze Pavilion swept his cold gaze over Su Yu and the others. These people were nothing to be afraid of. By the time he killed Luo Qingtong, he would be able to kill these people with a wave of his sleeve. Letting Luo Qingtong escape would be the biggest problem. Yes. When the elder heard this, he did not say anything else. A group of people flew towards Luo Qingtong and surrounded her in no time. Looking at them surrounding her, Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She narrowed her eyes and looked at the Pavilion Master of the Breeze Pavilion who was slowly walking over. The latter looked at her and smiled coldly. "Luo Qingtong, I didn't expect a little girl like you to be able to cultivate to such a powerful level. If I'm not wrong, all of this is the effect of the immortal jade bone, right?" As the Pavilion Master of the Breeze Pavilion spoke, he looked at Luo Qingtong with a feverish gaze. If he still didn't know where Luo Qingtong's strength came from, then he would be a little stupid. Zhang Diyu was not that brainless. If Luo Qingtong's cultivation was at this level before, he would not have concealed her strength and disqualified her from the Four Academies Grand Tournament. The only possibility was that Luo Qingtong was not at this level at that time. She had only become like this recently. Chapter 1807. It could only be the purified immortal jade bone. The power within the immortal jade bone was highly coveted, but no one dared to absorb its power because of the resentment and death within it. After all, if one's cultivation was not as high as that of the dead foreign cultivators, they would not be able to resist the invasion of that power. However, the purified immortal jade bone was different. The Pavilion Master recalled the power of the immortal jade bone that he had witnessed previously, and the ambition and passion in his eyes burned even brighter. "Luo Qingtong, on account of your considerable talent and power, hand over the method to purify the immortal jade bone. Then, make a heavenly oath to acknowledge me as your master, and I can spare your life. What do you think?" The Pavilion Master looked at Luo Qingtong with a covetous expression as he spoke. The young girl's features were peerlessly beautiful and her grace was unparalleled. She was hard to find in this world. If she was willing to hand over the method to purify the immortal jade bone and swear allegiance to him, he would dote on her greatly and spare her life. "Oh, is that so?" Luo Qingtong watched the Pavilion Master's actions with great interest as she ruminated in her heart. There was an extremely faint smile on her lips. She was calm and graceful, demonic and enchanting. "Then won't you pursue the matter of me killing Song Yan and Uncle Master Zhang?" Since the other party was feeling so good about her, she would play with them a little longer. "What?" The moment she said that, the Breeze Pavilion Master and the others were all shocked. Song Yan and the others are already dead? And they were killed by Luo Qingtong? The heavily injured Great Elder, who had almost fainted, began to struggle as if he had gone mad. "Ah, Luo Qingtong, you'll die a horrible death." Pavilion Master. "Hurry up and kill her. Kill this SL*T. He screamed maniacally, but the Pavilion Master only furrowed his brows and stared at him with dissatisfaction. He then shouted sternly, "Shut up." As he spoke, he suddenly flicked out a palm wind from his sleeve and instantly blasted the great elder's body. All of his teeth were knocked out, and he was lying on the ground spitting out mouthfuls of blood. To the pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion, the great elder was already crippled. How could he be mentioned in the same breath as Luo Qingtong? As long as the girl was willing to submit to him, Song Yan and the others could die. What was there to be concerned about? Thinking of this, he immediately said to Luo Qingtong, "Okay. As long as you submit to me, I will not pursue this matter any further." Hearing this, the first elder's heart instantly turned to ashes. He looked at the Breeze Pavilion master in disbelief. He had never expected that after risking his life for the Breeze Pavilion for so many years, the Breeze Pavilion master would kick him out with a single kick. He even wanted to support his enemy. Ah! He screamed crazily and wanted to curse, but because all his teeth were knocked out, he couldn't open his mouth and could only lie on the ground in despair. He thought back to how arrogant he was when he attacked old Master Luo and the others. But now he had fallen to such a state. The great elder's heart collapsed. He was so desperate that he almost fainted. Luo Qingtong glanced at him indifferently, then looked at the pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion with a faint smile. She asked again, "What about the people around me? Can they live as well?" She seemed to be addicted to this game. Even her expression was extremely realistic. She seemed to be looking forward to it. Seeing that Luo Qingtong had the intention to compromise, the pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion was overjoyed. He looked even more proud and arrogant. Chapter 1808. However, he refused without hesitation. No, they must die. The immortal jade bones could not be leaked, especially the purified immortal jade bones. There were too many people here, and the pavilion master could not take this risk. Other than Luo Qingtong, he was not going to let anyone else off. Oh, is that so? Then there's no other way. The smile on Luo Qingtong's lips had become bloodthirsty and enchanting at some point in time. None of my people can be harmed. Since that's the case, I can only let you die. As she spoke, the smile on her lips became even more sinister. After all, I have no expectations of your master. In other words, she did not care about their master at all. Hearing this, the pavilion master was first taken aback, then he flew into a rage. B*tsh, how dare you trick me? The pavilion master's face was filled with rage. At this point, he would be too stupid if he still did not realize that Luo Qingtong was fooling him. Seeing that the other party had fooled him like a fool, the pavilion master's face instantly turned cold. "I gave you face, but you don't want it," he said coldly, then waved his hand and shouted, "All of you surround her. No one is allowed to let her escape." Today, he was going to let her know the price of her insolence. Not submitting, not compromising. Then he would tear apart all of her pride and see if she could still be so arrogant in front of him. At that time, he would make her kneel on the ground and beg him. With that thought, the pavilion master instantly leaped up and rushed toward Luo Qingtong. Bang! The energy around him shot out rapidly, and in an instant, he was right in front of Luo Qingtong. His berserk and vast power was many times more powerful than the power emitted by the first elder. The pavilion master's strength at the peak of the Holy Lord realm was enough to show disdain for everyone present. He looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with a condescending expression, mockingly waiting for Luo Qingtong to show a panicked and regretful expression. She would definitely know that there was always someone better than her after seeing his strength. What was there to be so arrogant about when she had just entered the Holy Lord realm? However, he did not expect that he would be the one to be slapped in the face. Boom! Looking in the direction of the pavilion master's attack, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly, and she raised the life and death sword to meet the attack. Bang! Under the pavilion master's mocking gaze, she swung the life and death sword in her hand. In an instant, the snow-white sword light seemed to have come from the horizon, as if it had transcended time and space, ancient times and primitive times. It was breathtaking and unstoppable. Boom! The sword light in Luo Qingtong's hand shot out, and almost instantly reached the pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion. The pavilion master still had a condescending and mocking expression on his face, but when Luo Qingtong's sword struck out, his expression suddenly changed. This is. He looked at the sword light that was attacking him with a horrified expression. The power contained in that sword light was so powerful and shocking. It did not seem like an attack that an expert who had just entered the Holy Lord realm could produce. The power of this sword light was enough to threaten him. The expression of the pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion changed instantly. Chapter 1809. The higher-ups of the Breeze Pavilion who surrounded Luo Qingtong did not know what was going on. Pavilion Master? They looked in the direction of the Breeze Pavilion Master in surprise. The latter's body was rapidly retreating. However, he did not make it in time. After all, he was too confident and fast when he charged toward Luo Qingtong. He thought that Luo Qingtong, who had just entered the Holy Marquis realm, was not worth mentioning at all. However, he did not know that the one who was not worth mentioning was the ordinary Holy Marquis realm. Luo Qingtong, who had just entered the Holy Marquis realm, was absolutely abnormal and unexpected. Bam! Luo Qingtong's sword light caught up with him in midair. Then, the senior management of the Breeze Pavilion watched in shock as the Breeze Pavilion Master was sent flying, just like the Great Elder had been. However, the Pavilion Master was at the peak of the Holy Marquis realm after all. He was not as miserable as the Great Elder, who was crippled in one move. Even so, the Pavilion Master of the Breeze Pavilion was still in a very bad state. Bam! His body landed heavily on the ground, covered in mud and dust. He looked battered and exhausted. There was an extremely deep sword wound on his body. It went from top to bottom and almost pierced through his abdomen. Puff! The Pavilion Master spat out a mouthful of blood. He lay on the ground with a horrified expression and looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong. The latter narrowed her eyes and returned to where she was previously. She looked calm and at ease. How is it, Pavilion Master Qingfeng? Do you still want me to submit to you and acknowledge you as my master? Luo Qingtong's face was calm and she was smiling. Her smile was absolutely domineering and enchanting. Her blood-red eyes lowered as she looked at the Pavilion Master Qingfeng, who was lying on the ground in front of her. He was instantly embarrassed. You. The Pavilion Master Qingfeng looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong in disbelief. He did not know how she could be so strong. How could this be? His opponent was just a new Saint Marquis. It was still possible to send the first elder flying with a single move. However, he was a peak Saint Marquis. How was it possible for the other party to be able to suppress him with brute strength that was 3 minor realms higher? After all, the Pavilion Master of the Breeze Pavilion hadn't just entered the pinnacle of the Saint Lord realm. Instead, he had been inside for many years and his strength had almost broken through to the Saint King realm. It was only because the accumulated strength in his body was not enough to break through to the Saint King realm. Luo Qingtong actually sent him flying with a single blow. How could she be so strong? How is this possible? The Pavilion Master of the Breeze Pavilion couldn't believe it no matter what. As for the Great Elder, he had been waiting angrily for the Breeze Pavilion Master to avenge him and his daughter. However, he didn't expect to see the Pavilion Master of the Breeze Pavilion being sent flying by Luo Qingtong's sword. In an instant, a mouthful of hot blood surged in his throat, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. This is impossible. This is impossible. He roared like a madman, rolling on the ground. One could see the despair in his heart. The Pavilion Master of the Breeze Pavilion Master was a peak Saint Marquis. Luo Qingtong, who had just entered the Saint Marquis realm, could actually send him flying. How monstrous and abnormal was this woman? There was no hope for him and his daughter to be avenged. The Great Elder almost went crazy. Chapter 1810. However, before he could do anything, Luo Qingtong had already sent the Pavilion Master of the Cool Breeze Pavilion flying. In the end, this gorgeous, enchanting, and bewitching woman was standing at a place that he would never be able to reach. Yin Yuju thought of the first time she met Luo Qingtong. At that time, the girl hadn't even reached the Martial King realm. In the blink of an eye, everything had changed. The other party was no longer an existence that he could look up to. Yin Yuju clenched her fists tightly. On the other side, after the pavilion master of the Cool Breeze Pavilion recovered from his shock, he suddenly slapped the ground beneath him and shouted, "Let's work together to kill her." His expression was ferocious to the extreme. He had completely underestimated Luo Qingtong. Who would have thought that this unremarkable young girl, who came from the secular world, would actually have such terrifying talent and strength? With such battle strength, the other party was definitely comparable to a first-rate genius from a top-notch sect. It was laughable that he had thought that Luo Qingtong was only SOSO. Now he had been thoroughly slapped in the face. However, it wasn't too late for him to realize this. No matter how powerful Luo Qingtong was, she was only one person. There were quite a few saint generals among the higher-ups of the Cool Breeze Pavilion beside him. As long as they could hold Luo Qingtong back for an instant, he would definitely be able to find a chance to kill her. This slut, just wait to die. The higher-ups of the Cool Breeze Pavilion had already recovered from their shock. Hearing this, they subconsciously rushed toward Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes, and a bloody light flashed in the depths of her eyes. Just as she was about to fully activate her ocular technique, a voice suddenly came from the space at the bottom of the cliff behind her. What's going on? Tong Tong. Yu Huang and the others had just come out from the depths of the cliff when they saw this scene. In an instant his expression turned cold. Then the aura around him suddenly fluctuated, and he quickly shot toward where Luo Qingtong was. The higher-ups of the imperial sect followed closely behind him. Yu Xingqi also fiercely patted the little white cat in his arms. "Do-do," she shouted softly, and in an instant, the little white cat rushed out of her arms. It rolled on the ground and turned into a huge white tiger. Shua! Yu Xingqi sat on White Tiger and rushed towards Luo Qingtong's direction. Boom! The group of people killed their way into the encirclement of the Breeze Pavilion's higher-ups, instantly stopping them from besieging Luo Qingtong. The people from the imperial sect were not weak. After training in the space at the bottom of the cliff for a period of time, they were several times stronger than Su Yu and the others. Especially Yu Huang, who resisted the attacks of the Breeze Pavilion's elders by himself. The other party simply couldn't hurt Luo Qingtong. Bang! Yu Huang killed a Breeze Pavilion elder who was closest to him. Then with a leap, he appeared in front of Luo Qingtong. "Tong Tong, what is going on?" His expression was stern. These people were so strong. They obviously weren't from the true Spill continent. Were they from the hidden world? Sure enough, Luo Qingtong's words confirmed his guess. They are from the Breeze Pavilion. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent as she glanced at him. Didn't this man promise Yi Qianxian that he wouldn't call her Tong Tong? Luo Qingtong's eyes teased him. Noticing her gaze, Yu Huang lightly snorted. Chapter 1811. His face darkened slightly. In any case, he had promised Yi Qianxian that he wouldn't call Luo Qingtong Tong Tong in the future, but he hadn't said under what circumstances. When that man was around, he wouldn't call her that. When he wasn't around, the other party wouldn't know. Yu Huang's face was full of righteousness. Luo Qingtong looked at him and laughed for a while. At this moment, the furious voice of the Cool Breeze Pavilion master came from the front. "Bitches, all of you must die." The Cool Breeze Pavilion master was extremely angry. The appearance of the people from the imperial sect had ruined his plan. The upper echelons of the Cool Breeze Pavilion were restrained, so he couldn't act as he had planned before and attack Luo Qingtong. "Bastard!" he shouted angrily. Then he clenched his teeth and swallowed a pill. It was a pill that could raise his strength to the Saint King realm in a short period of time. However, taking this pill would delay the Cool Breeze Pavilion master's breakthrough to the Saint King realm for several years before he could continue to break through. Originally, the Cool Breeze Pavilion master's comprehension had already reached the Saint King realm. He was just short of accumulating his strength. But now, after taking this pill, his strength wouldn't be able to continue to break through for several years. The Cool Breeze Pavilion master was extremely frustrated. With a bang, the aura around his body surged. In an instant, countless surging and fierce auras shot out from his body. Every burst of energy blasted an extremely small and deep hole in the ground. under the shroud and flow of his aura. The sword wound on the Cool Breeze Pavilion Master's chest was healed. That was because Luo Qingtong hadn't used the power of the Death Blade before. Boom! The Cool Breeze Pavilion Master stepped out, and in an instant the mountain shattered. Under his feet, the ground suddenly cracked, and countless rocks and stones shattered. The aura in his body had risen to the Saint King realm. Bang! The Cool Breeze Pavilion Master's figure swept out in an instant, attacking Luo Qingtong, Yu Huang, and the others. Seeing this scene, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. She raised the long sword in her hand and rushed towards the Cool Breeze Pavilion Master. At the same time, she shouted coldly, "Yu Huang, deal with those Cool Breeze Pavilion elders. Don't let any of them go." Luo Qingtong's face was cold, and the bloody light in her eyes. She had been dealing with the Cool Breeze Pavilion Master and the others. She was waiting for the best opportunity to catch all of them in one fell swoop. At this moment, Yu Huang and the others appeared, which was exactly what she wanted. Not a single one of the Cool Breeze Pavilion elders would be able to escape. She also didn't need to worry that the Breeze Pavilion Master would try his best to escape with the help of the Breeze Pavilion's higher-ups. At that time, if he were to be careless and allow the other party to escape and leak the information about the Immortal Jade Bone and the Immortal Jade Bone, the consequences would be unimaginable. Luo Qingtong wouldn't allow herself to make such a mistake. So, she didn't use her strongest strength from the beginning. But now, she had nothing to worry about. Okay. Yu Huang didn't say anything. He directly rushed towards the Cool Breeze Pavilion elders to prevent them from joining forces with the Cool Breeze Pavilion Master. At the same time, he prepared to surround and kill them with the people from the Imperial sect. Luo Qingtong didn't have any worries. As for Luo Qingtong, Chapter 1812. Boom! As Yu Huang leaped up, the Pavilion Master also rushed to Luo Qingtong's side. Bitch! Do you really think you're invincible in the Saint Lord realm? Seeing that Luo Qingtong was actually charging towards him, the Breeze Pavilion Master's face was filled with anger from being belittled. He admitted that Luo Qingtong's strength was extraordinary. She had sent him flying with one blow. But at that time, he was only at the peak of the Saint Lord realm. Now he had advanced to the Saint King realm. Although the difference of one realm was only the last step, it was the difference between heaven and earth. He didn't believe that Luo Qingtong was so monstrous that she could fight against him when she had just entered the Saint Lord realm. The other party's arrogance and confidence would only cause her to die without a burial ground in the end. As the Pavilion Master thought this, the claw wind in his hands turned into hooks and became as terrifying as a chicken's claws. The veins on his hands bulged, and his exposed skin became as hard as metal, shining with a cold light. At the same time, the nails on his hands suddenly elongated. The nails on his hands were curved and sharp like an eagle's talons. Boom! He clawed fiercely at Luo Qingtong. The claw wind was swift and fierce, and it directly left a trail of broken and rapid shooting in the air. Just the rapid shooting wind had already shattered the space into pieces. The fragments shot out rapidly, and each step had the strength of a peak Saint Lord realm attack. Bang! Seeing the Pavilion Master's attack coming, Luo Qingtong's eyes froze. Her blood-red eyes flickered violently, and the trajectory of the Pavilion Master's attack instantly appeared in her eyes. Wind speed, hand speed, and the distribution of the attack power. Where the power was the strongest, where the power was the weakest, everything was in her eyes. Luo Qingtong had become a supreme ocular sorcerer with her blood-red eyes. Now she was going to use the power of her ocular sorcery to reach the peak of this strange world. Wherever her eyes landed, she would trample under her feet and lay the foundation of her supreme path. Boom! Luo Qingtong swung the long sword in her hand. Annihilation! As her stern voice rang out, a stream of sword light that was enough to stun the world and destroy everything in the world shot out from her sword in an instant. The life and death yin-yang sword had completely transformed into the death blade. Luo Qingtong was dressed in black. Her face was beautiful and piercingly cold. She was as dazzling as a goddess from the god realm descending to the mortal world, or as if a witch from the devil realm descending to the world. The life and death yin-yang sword in his hand flashed with a sharp black light. Like the light of the harvest of death, it flew forward. This attack directly broke through the countless spatial fragments that had been shot out by the Pavilion Master of the Breeze Pavilion. It followed the weakest point of the Pavilion Master's attack. Boom. The black sword light in Luo Qingtong's hand was like a white steed flitting through a crack, directly avoiding the most powerful part of the Pavilion Master's attack. The aura around its body annihilated all the attacking auras, and transformed them into a huge boost for its sword light. The black sword light grew in size in an instant, and its aura was even stronger than before. It crushed toward the Pavilion Master without any hindrance. Boom, boom, boom. Cracks in the space around the sword light in Luo Qingtong's hand burst open. Chapter 1813. Countless terrifying attack auras shot out violently. It stirred up the surrounding heaven and earth spirit chi even more violently. They constantly collided in midair, emitting extremely violent and ferocious auras. Asterisk bang. Asterisk the sword light in Luo Qingtong's hand flew all the way, and under the Pavilion Master's incredulous gaze, it directly met his claws. Asterisk boom. Asterisk the two collided fiercely in midair, and an ear-piercing sound like metal striking metal exploded. Then with a swish, blood splattered. The Pavilion Master of the Cool Breeze Pavilion suddenly shrieked. The attack aura in his hands was completely annihilated when it came into contact with Luo Qingtong's sword light, and then transformed into the power of the other party's sword light. The strongest part of his attack was avoided by Luo Qingtong, and the weakest part of his attack couldn't withstand the bombardment of Luo Qingtong's sword light at all. Luo Qingtong was unimpeded all the way, and directly cut off his hands with a bang. Blood splattered out. The power of the death blade attacked the wound. The Pavilion Master's defense was supposed to be indestructible, impossible to be broken by power below the Saint King realm. Under the attack of Luo Qingtong's death blade and annihilation, it was easily broken. Asterisk bang. Asterisk his body was fiercely blasted away by the aftermath of the collision of the two attacks, and he heavily smashed into the ground. Luo Qingtong's eyes were ice cold. Her figure directly swept through the air, and with a tap of her foot, she lightly stepped on the aftermath of the attack coming at her. In an instant, she stepped on the wave and attacked the Pavilion Master again. The sword light around her body was like a swimming dragon, and the sword chi was dense, and the sound of a dragon's roar could be heard incessantly. Asterisk boom. Asterisk the tip of Luo Qingtong's sword was pointed directly at the Pavilion Master. That pair of blood-red eyes, as they opened and closed, were full of sharpness. Ah! Seeing Luo Qingtong's attack coming at him again, the Pavilion Master was shocked. The light contained in the long sword was extremely terrifying, and the Pavilion Master's eyes suddenly widened. He never thought that Luo Qingtong was so monstrous. How was this possible? She had just entered the Saint Lord realm, but he couldn't fight back. This scene, which was similar to a fantasy, actually appeared in front of him. If Luo Qingtong was a core disciple of a top sect in a hidden world, he wouldn't be so surprised. However, the other party was clearly an ordinary girl from this ruined secular world. His talent was so monstrous and unrivaled. What level would her strength and achievements in the future? Thinking about it, the Pavilion Lord of the Breeze Pavilion trembled violently, not only because of the danger he was about to face, but also because he had offended such a powerful and terrifying enemy like Luo Qingtong. If he had known that Luo Qingtong's strength and talent were so terrifying, he definitely wouldn't have allowed her to live until now, when she was strong enough to threaten him. The moment she appeared, he would have used all his strength to kill her. The Pavilion Master's heart was filled with extreme regret. How much he looked down on Luo Qingtong before was how much he was shocked and on the verge of collapse. But it was too late to say anything now. Asterisk bang. Star. Chapter 1814. But in the end he gritted his teeth and shouted, B*TCH, I won't let you have it easy even if I die. Suddenly, several items flew out of the Breeze Pavilion Master's body. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed when she saw those things. Those things flickered with silver-gray light under the gray aura of the space at the bottom of the cliff. Those things were none other than the immortal jade bones. Moreover, they were extremely pure immortal jade bones. Although they were not as big as the one Luo Qingtong had obtained before, the aura of these immortal jade bones was much stronger than the immortal jade bones that had advanced to the Saint Lord realm. These were the immortal jade bones from a Saint King realm monster. Luo Qingtong's sword instantly changed direction when she saw this. The sword light that was originally aimed at the pavilion master turned and slashed horizontally at the immortal jade bones that flew out of his body. However, she was still a step too late. There were 5 immortal jade bones that flew out of the pavilion master's body. Luo Qingtong slashed 4 of them, and he bit the last one in his mouth. *tch, I want you dead. The pavilion master of the Breeze Pavilion looked at Luo Qingtong with bloodshot eyes. Then he raised his head and swallowed the immortal jade bone. Boom! As soon as the immortal jade bone entered his body, the aura in the pavilion master's body skyrocketed again, almost reaching the peak of the Saint King realm. At the same time, his body underwent a drastic change in an instant. Bang! 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 Accompanied by an uncontrollable groan of pain, the pavilion master's body underwent a terrifying transformation. His body seemed to swell in an instant, like a huge inflated balloon. At the same time, countless bloody claws and vine-like things extended out of his body. His hair grew rapidly and danced in the air like seaweed. In an instant, the pavilion master turned into an extremely terrifying and disgusting monster. Boom! Luo Qingtong's sword light bombarded his body, and was instantly blocked by something that looked like scales that grew out of his body. In an instant, countless sparks shot out. The pavilion master's body was blasted back nearly a few meters, but he was not injured at all. His current strength, coupled with the strange mutation in his body, had forcefully attained a combat strength comparable to a Saint Emperor, who had just entered the Saint Emperor realm. Luo Qingtong's sword light slashed his body, but it had no effect. Roar! He roared like a man and a beast as he directly pounced at Luo Qingtong. His hair was like a sharp sword, flying in the air and piercing towards Luo Qingtong. The claws and pincers that came out of his body were also fiercely aimed at Luo Qingtong. In the sky, on the ground, in all directions, there were his attacking figures. Every attack was comparable to the peak of the Saint King realm. In an instant, Luo Qingtong was completely Tong. Yu Sihuang, who had just killed the elders of the Breeze Pavilion, turned around and saw this scene. In an instant, his pupils constricted. Old Master Luo Suyu and the others were shocked when they saw this. Master! Boss! Chapter 1815. They didn't even care about the attacks in front of them. Instead, they rushed toward Luo Qingtong with all their might. Little Overlord Yuan, who had taken a hit from the other party, didn't even bother to fight back. Instead, he rushed toward Luo Qingtong while dripping with blood. The group of people looked at the scene in front of them, their eyes almost popping out of their sockets. Meanwhile, Luo Qingtong was in the attack range. She watched as the mutated Breeze Pavilion master pounced at her, with a ferocious expression. Her gaze was very solemn. She didn't expect her opponent to use the mutated immortal jade bone to deal with her. However, this didn't mean that she didn't have any other methods. Humph! Luo Qingtong let out a low shout. In an instant, Little Pig's pink and tender figure appeared in front of her. In the 9-layered exquisite pagoda, Little Pig had already learned about what was happening outside from Luo Qingtong through his special connection with her. As soon as he came out, he didn't stop to rest. He immediately leaped into the air with his 4 hooves. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's cold voice rang out. Unseal. Boom. As Luo Qingtong's voice rang out, the purple hexagram array on her forehead suddenly appeared and started to spin rapidly. At the same time, Little Pig's body was instantly enveloped by a ball of blazing light. In the next second, roar! A roar that seemed to have penetrated through the entire primeval chaos instantly rang out. Then an incomparably huge claw, which seemed to have come from the 9th heaven, heavily pressed down on the body of the pavilion master Qing Feng, who was rushing toward Luo Qingtong. Puff! The pavilion master Qing Feng's figure was like a balloon filled with air. In an instant, he was flattened by the huge claw. Boom! The claw heavily pressed on the ground, instantly slamming the pavilion master Qing Feng into the ground. Countless cracks appeared on the ground. Gullies and fissures appeared under the feet of Su Yu and Su Xiaoxiao. The latter and the others were rushing over at full speed. When they saw this scene, they were both surprised and delighted. They hurriedly avoided the gully that had appeared under their feet. The remaining people of the Breeze Pavilion were stunned when they saw this scene. When the Cool Breeze Pavilion master swallowed the immortal jade bone, they thought that Luo Qingtong was dead for sure. After all, the pavilion master's strength had skyrocketed to such a level. No matter how monstrous Luo Qingtong was, it was impossible for her to resist him. Who knew that the other party had such a trump card? What exactly was this claw? Divine beast? Ancient mythological beast? Or was it something else? Everyone felt an indescribable tremor in their hearts. Almost all the cheers that were about to come out of their mouths were stuck in their throats. Not a single word could be said. Their faces were extremely pale, and their teeth were chattering nonstop. Then, it was unknown who was the first to shout, "Run!" In an instant, the group of people covered their heads and fled like rats. Run! This was the only thought in everyone's mind. Not only was Luo Qingtong's strength terrifying, but she also had such a trump card in her hands. If they didn't leave now, they would all die here. Not good. Because Luo Qingtong was in danger, Su Yu and the others rushed over without thinking. Suddenly, no one cared about the remaining people of the Breeze Pavilion. Now these people were fleeing in all directions. If they really ran back to the hidden world and spread the news, then Luo Qingtong would be in danger. The group thought and immediately chased after them. Chapter 1816. Just as their bodies moved, bang, 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 a series of explosive sounds could be heard. In an instant, the figures of the people of the Breeze Pavilion who were running outside exploded into pieces in mid-air. Countless pieces of flesh and blood fell from the sky like rain. The eyes of Su Yu and the others instantly froze. At this time, Luo Qingtong was catching the falling little pig. She suddenly raised her head when she felt the movement in front of her. Then, the light in her eyes instantly shrank. Luo Qingtong. In the sky above the space at the bottom of the cliff, 3 figures stood in the air. The aura of these 3 figures was even above that of the Breeze Pavilion Master. Although he wasn't as strong as the mutated Cool Breeze Pavilion Master, his aura was still at the Saint King realm. The person in front was obviously at the peak of the Saint King realm. Humph! I didn't expect you to have so many hidden cards. Elder Xie, the outer court elder of our celestial palace, was killed by you? And the 3 disciples who came to investigate the cause of Elder Xie's death were also killed by you, right? The peak of the Saint King realm powerhouse coldly said. Although his words were interrogative, the tone of his words was clear and certain. The 3 of them were ordered to investigate the cause of death of Elder Xie and the 3 disciples, as well as the whereabouts of the map of the Saint King's tomb. Originally, they were just secretly following the people of the Breeze Pavilion to see if they were secretly contacting others. They didn't expect to discover that the people of the Breeze Pavilion had gone to the true Spill continent. Then they discovered this space at the bottom of the cliff. The 3 of them were wild with joy. They forcibly suppressed the joy in their hearts and prepared to act like the mantis that catches the cicada, unaware of the aureole behind. Once the people from the Breeze Pavilion obtained the celestial jade bones, they would make their move. They would surround and kill all of these people before taking the celestial jade bones away. At the same time, they would interrogate the people from the Breeze Pavilion about the cause of Elder Xie's death. However, they didn't expect that the people of the Breeze Pavilion would discover the immortal jade bone here. At the same time, they also discovered Luo Qingtong's true strength. In this unremarkable true Spill continent, there was actually such a peerless and monstrous girl hidden. Not only was her combat strength amazing, but she also had such a powerful and terrifying card. What was that claw just now? Was it transformed from the little pig in her hand? And the secret of the immortal jade bone was also in her hands? The 3 of them looked at Luo Qingtong with burning eyes, and their hearts were filled with unspeakable joy. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect we would have such an opportunity. Senior brother, the sect has really let us off easy this time by sending us out. The man behind the peak of Saint King Realm said. His gaze towards Luo Qingtong was filled with unconcealable greed. He was an upper-level Saint King Realm cultivator, and the other person beside him was also an upper-level Saint King Realm cultivator. It could be seen how important this matter was to the Celestial Palace. After the 3 disciples died, they immediately sent out the backbone of the Celestial Palace to investigate this matter. 3 Saint King Realm cultivators, and one of them was at the peak of the Saint King Realm. Even if it was really the people of the Breeze Pavilion who did this, the 3 of them were more than enough to wipe out the entire sect. Chapter 18-17. Boom. As they spoke, they released their auras, completely enveloping the edge of the space at the bottom of the cliff. None of the people here could escape. Luo Qingtong could naturally break through their aura barrier and leave, but what about Old Man Luo, Empress Dowager Yanxi Xiyu, Tian Xie, Su Xiaoxiao, and the others? And the people of the Imperial sect. Only Shi and Yu Sihuang could pass through the aura barrier of these 3 people. Could it be that they had to leave the others behind? This was absolutely impossible. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold as she looked at the 3 figures that appeared in front of her. Not far away, the Grand Supreme Dean also suddenly widened his eyes. My God, Celestial Palace's people? Protector? He had just arrived when Luo Qingtong killed the Cool Breeze Pavilion's master. Because he was too shocked, he was stunned and didn't rush out. He originally planned to launch a sneak attack, so he didn't leave any traces. At this moment, seeing the Celestial Palace's people appear in front of Luo Qingtong and the others, he instantly became anxious. A Cool Breeze Pavilion was enough to deal with Luo Qingtong and the others. These 3 Celestial Palaces people weren't people that Luo Qingtong and the others could deal with. Damn it, why hasn't Mingzun come yet? Is he in the space at the bottom of the cliff? The Grand Supreme Dean was anxious. Seeing that the Celestial Palace's people were about to attack Luo Qingtong and the others, he suddenly steeled his heart and used something on his body to jump out. That thing had been on him for many years, but he had never used it in order to avoid certain people and certain things. But now Luo Qingtong and the others were clearly in danger. Not to mention anything else, Luo Qingtong had cured his internal injuries. This life-saving grace, he had to return it to her. For this, he couldn't care less about anything else. Evil Dr. Baby. Rip. The Grand Supreme Dean's voice was accompanied by the sound of silk tearing. Suddenly, he tore apart the aura barrier of the 3 Saint King Realm experts at the edge of the space at the bottom of the cliff. His body was enveloped in a reddish-gold light barrier. The strong aura fluctuation emitted from it was not inferior to the aura of the peak Saint King Realm expert. It was even stronger. At this moment, under the protection of the light barrier, the Grand Supreme Dean directly tore their barrier. He then hurriedly said to Luo Qingtong and the others, "Hurry, leave this place, I'll stop them." His face was filled with urgency. This defensive light barrier could only be used for a limited time. Luo Qingtong and the rest had to leave this place quickly. Otherwise, he would not be able to hold on. Yu Sihuang, take my grandpa and the others leave immediately. Everyone from the Luo clan and Tian Xie, retreat. Go to the depths of the space at the bottom of the cliff. Go find Qian. Luo Qingtong immediately said decisively. The appearance of the Celestial Palace people was beyond her expectations. Little Pig had already used his power once, so it was impossible for him to use it again. With her current strength, she couldn't deal with 3 Saint King Realm experts at the same time, especially when one of them was at the peak of the Saint King Realm. Grandfather Luo and the others had to leave immediately. Yes. Su Yu and the others gritted their teeth and didn't say anything. They gathered together and quickly rushed to the depths of the space at the bottom of the cliff. After following Luo Qingtong for so long, they knew better than anyone else. Chapter 18:18. What they needed to do now was to immediately escort the old man and the others away, so that their master wouldn't be worried, and then, to find Mingzun. Bastard! Little tyrant Yuan fiercely beat the back of his hand and gritted his teeth. If it wasn't for Big Brother's wife being in the depths of the space at the bottom of the cliff, these people wouldn't be able to hurt Boss at all. If they have the ability, then they should come when Big Brother's husband is here. F***ck. His eyes were blood red, and he was about to go crazy from anger. His boss was so talented, and these trash from the hidden world only knew how to rely on their strength to bully others. When they found Yi Qianxian, these bastards would have to bear the consequences. Bullying them for being from the secular world? They even looked down on them from the hidden world. Several attacks in a row, from the Breeze Pavilion to the Celestial Palace, made little Tyrant Yuan and the others have a very bad impression of the hidden world. High and mighty your sister, who didn't walk from the weak to the strong. When they went to the hidden world, they would definitely show these bastards who looked down on others. Little Tyrant Yuan was anxious in his heart. Su Xiaoxiao, Sima Ju, Ling Tianhan, and the others' expressions were also incomparably cold. They used to yearn for the hidden world to the extreme. But now, the people from the Celestial Palace and the Breeze Pavilion made them have no good impression of those high and mighty people who looked down on them from the so-called high and mighty places. From then on, as long as they saw the high and mighty heaven's favored ones, they would start to attack them, and started to be called the walking heaven's favored sweeper, making the foreign heaven's favored ones so angry that their teeth itched, but they couldn't do anything about it. Let's not talk about this later. Swoosh. The group of people quickly rushed to the depths of the space at the bottom of the cliff. Yu Sihuang also didn't have any opinion on Luo Qingtong's words. He knew that Luo Qingtong trusted him by leaving the safety of Old Man Luo and the others to him. The depths of the space at the bottom of the cliff were full of dangers, and he couldn't not go together to protect Old Man Luo and the others. I'll go find Yi Qianxian, you wait, he said to Luo Qingtong with a serious expression, although he was extremely dissatisfied with his love rival, Yi Qianxian. But at this moment, only that man could help Luo Qingtong. She did not know how that damned man cultivated his strength. It was simply terrifying. If not for the fact that his strength was not weak, he would have been beaten to death by the other party. Thinking of this, Yu Sihuang's heart was depressed and he gritted his teeth. Yes. Luo Qingtong looked at him and nodded. She didn't say anything else and directly turned around and rushed towards the direction of the Grand Dean. The latter was trying his best to fend off the 3 Celestial Palace protectors, preventing them from pursuing Luo Qingtong and the others. The reddish gold shield on his body could withstand the attacks of the 3 people, so they couldn't hurt him. Just like that, he kept the 3 Celestial Palace protectors entangled, not allowing them to take even half a step closer to him. However, at this moment, he saw Luo Qingtong turn around and instantly stared at her. Hey, you little girl, why did you come back? The Grand Dean stomped his feet in anger. He finally managed to stop the 3 people. Why did Luo Qingtong come back? She couldn't beat them. These 3 people can't be let go. Luo Qingtong's voice was cold. At the same time, she glanced at the reddish gold shield on the Grand Dean. Chapter 1819. Under the series of attacks from the 3 people, the light of the protective shield dimmed quite a bit. Obviously, there was a limit to the use of this shield. The Grand Supreme Dean might not be able to hold on until he left safely. Moreover, if he left, these 3 people would fly into a rage out of humiliation, and would absolutely not let the Grand Dean off. At that time, they would surround him and exhaust the power of his shield. The Grand Supreme Dean would be in danger. Luo Qingtong would not leave the Grand Supreme Dean alone. Hey, you evil doctor child. The Grand Supreme Dean felt touched and warm. Just as he was about to say something, the 3 Celestial Palace experts saw Luo Qingtong return, and instantly rushed toward her. Seeing this, the Grand Supreme Dean did not have time to speak and hurriedly tried to stop them. However, Luo Qingtong stopped him. No need, Grand Supreme Dean, you just protect me. Wherever I tell you to go, you go there. Don't worry about their attacks. Luo Qingtong's eyes were slightly cold. The power of the Grand Supreme Dean's pure gold shield was limited. She had to try her best to prolong the time for him, so that the shield outside his body could last a little longer. Luo Qingtong's words stunned the Grand Supreme Dean. Before he could react to what Luo Qingtong was saying, the girl's shout had already sounded. Upper left, Zhengqin position. The Grand Supreme Dean's figure subconsciously followed Luo Qingtong's voice and stood in that direction. However, there was no attack coming from that direction at all. What the hell was this girl doing? Did she want to face the 3 Celestial Palace protectors alone? They were 2 upper-level Saint Kings and 1 Peak Saint King. Could this girl stop fooling around? Hey, evil doctor child. The Grand Supreme Dean looked at Luo Qingtong and wanted to twist his body back. However, Luo Qingtong's words stopped him. Grand Supreme Dean, trust me. Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes flickered. I won't put the 2 of us in danger. Luo Qingtong's voice rang out. Instantly, the Grand Supreme Dean gritted his teeth. All right, let's do it. I'll just trust this little kid. The other party had cured the chronic illness in his body and allowed his cultivation to recover. This alone was equivalent to saving half of his life. He would believe him just this once. Boom. As the Grand Supreme Dean spoke, the sword light in Luo Qingtong's hand shot out in an instant. Then it violently blasted towards the 3 Celestial Palace powerhouses in front of her. You overestimate yourself. The 3 Celestial Palace protectors snorted coldly. Originally, they were still rather fearful of the reddish-gold barrier that enveloped the Grand Supreme Dean. At this moment, seeing that Luo Qingtong had sent him away and told him to believe her, they all sneered. This young girl with monstrous talent was confident to the point of arrogance. If she could deal with the 3 of them alone, the people around her wouldn't have had to run away like a coward. After dealing with the 2 of them and finding out the secret of purifying the celestial jade bones, they would find the people who had fled and kill them all. These people thought that they could escape in the end. Little did they know that when they sealed off this area, they had already left a unique mark on them. When that time came, none of them would be able to escape. The news of the celestial jade bones must not be leaked. Chapter 1820. Boom. Their attacks were directed at Luo Qingtong. They wanted to capture her first before surrounding and killing the Grand Supreme Dean. Then they would go after Old Master Luo and the others. Their attacks were directed at Luo Qingtong from 3 different directions. Finally, they converged at one point and blasted at the sword light that Luo Qingtong had shot out. They were waiting for Luo Qingtong's sword light to shatter. Then their attacks instantly pierced through to injure and capture Luo Qingtong. However, when their attacks collided with Luo Qingtong's sword light, something shocking happened with a boom. Their attacks collided with Luo Qingtong's sword light. Then, at the same time and from different angles, the 3 attacks were guided by Luo Qingtong's sword light and collided violently with each other. In an instant, their attacks were neutralized by the collision. Then, the last remaining ray of light was reflected from the direction of Luo Qingtong's sword light. Bang! That attack landed where the Grand Supreme Dean was standing, and was completely blocked by him. What? The 3 experts from Celestial Palace widened their eyes in disbelief when they saw this scene. Even an ordinary new Saint King would not be able to block the combined attacks of the 3 of them. How could Luo Qingtong, who had just entered the Saint Marquis realm, block and distort the power of their attacks? It should be known that it was impossible to cause their attacks to deviate if they were not equally strong. However, Luo Qingtong had done it with an attack that was much weaker than theirs. Although the deviation was limited, it was still within the range of her attack. However, because the Grand Supreme Dean had blocked it, their attempt to capture and kill her had become a joke. What was going on? How could this be? However, they did not know that in Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes, the surrounding environment, wind speed, and the flow of spatial energy were all displayed in 3D in front of her eyes. Luo Qingtong had calculated everything. She deliberately directed her sword light at a specific speed and angle towards the 3 experts from Celestial Palace, so that their attacks would deviate when they collided with her sword light. This principle could be explained by using 4 ounces to deflect 1,000 pounds. However, what Luo Qingtong needed to do was much harsher than deflecting 1,000 pounds with 4 ounces. 1 against 3. A beginner holy marquis against 3 holy kings. Luo Qingtong's figure stood proudly on the spot. The aura around her was like a rainbow. She pointed the sword light in her hand and looked disdainfully. Her black clothes was domineering and as enchanting as a demon. "Come and fight, bastard." As Luo Qingtong pointed the tip of her sword at them, the three celestial palace protectors could not stand such provocation. This was a young girl who had just entered the Holy Marquis realm. They were 3 Saint King realm masters. 2 of them were upper holy kings and 1 was peak holy king. Even so, they could not do anything to her. They had really thrown their faces to the bottom of the mud. The Grand Supreme Dean's shout of surprise made the veins on their foreheads throb. They were furious. "Ha ha. Well done, evil Dr. Kid." The Grand Supreme Dean was surprised and delighted. Chapter 1821. He didn't think that Luo Qingtong would be able to draw the other party's attack over. Although it was only a slight deviation, with him here, both of them would be fine. Unless his protective barrier's time was up. Otherwise, these 3 people wouldn't be able to hurt him and Luo Qingtong. He could only hope that Deep Venerable could arrive before then. Otherwise, he and evil Dr. Brat would be in deep trouble. As the highest dean was thinking this, somewhere deep within the space at the bottom of the cliff, Yi Qianxian's figure floated in the air. Silver clothes, black hair, golden robes. The man opened his hands and a powerful aura spread out, sinking into the space crack in front of him. This space crack was just as Yi Qianxian had thought. It had been artificially torn open. Yi Qianxian could feel an aura that didn't belong to the true Spill continent or the hidden world. Was it someone from the outer realms? Or perhaps someone of an even higher level? Yi Qianxian's eyes narrowed. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to distinguish this aura, but that didn't mean he couldn't. Yi Qianxian was born with the heavenly vein body. His strength had already grown to a terrifying degree. The aura left behind in this space crack was clearly an extremely high level of strength. How could such a force exist in the true Spill continent? Moreover, he didn't know anything about it. Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes. His divine sense and strength followed the remnant aura of this force, trying to trace the other party's whereabouts after opening this space crack. However, just as his aura submerged into this space crack, and he was about to catch a trace of the other party's tail, an urgent voice sounded out from behind him. "Yi Qianxian, hurry. Hurry to the edge of the space at the bottom of the cliff. 3 Saint Kings from Celestial Palace are surrounding Qingtong." As this voice sounded out, Yi Qianxian and Bei Qing Wind Feather, and the others who were standing guard nearby were all shocked. "Qingtong." Yi Qianren's eyes froze. In just an instant, he raised his hands and put them together. With a swoosh, the spatial crack was closed by him. Then his figure suddenly flashed and disappeared into the air. "Hey, wait for me. That bastard," Yu Huang anxiously said. He told Bei Qing Wind Feather and the others to protect Grandfather Luo and the others. Then he quickly rushed to the edge of the space at the bottom of the cliff. Bang! Outside the space at the bottom of the cliff, Luo Qingtong and the highest Supreme Dean, they were resisting the attacks of the 3 people from Celestial Palace. The 3 people from the Celestial Supreme Palace refused to give up, and continued to attack Luo Qingtong. But in fact Luo Qingtong really did it. Their attacks were diverted in different ways, and all of them fell on the body of the Grand Supreme Dean, who was constantly moving around beside Luo Qingtong, and were blocked by the other party. However, as one attack after another blasted out, Luo Qingtong's strength was somewhat depleted. Furthermore, the eye technique in her eyes was being used up too quickly, and her mental power was almost depleted. It should be known that once they lost the power of their eye sorcery, Luo Qingtong and the Grand Supreme Dean would be in an extremely passive position when facing the 3 Celestial Palace experts. Chapter 1822. Translations with a snap. A slight cracking sound could be heard from the reddish-gold barrier on the body of the Grand Principal beside her. Oh no! The Grand Supreme Dean's eyes suddenly widened. Oh no! The barrier had consumed too much energy previously. It was going to end early. In fact, if Luo Qingtong had not used her eye technique to hold on for so long, the barrier would have been broken by the previous attacks. Seeing the reddish-gold barrier disappear, the three Celestial Palace protectors, who were originally furious and frantic, suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. Good, good, good. Your tortoise shell is finally broken. Trash, let's see how you die. As they spoke, they directly attacked the Grand Supreme Dean. Previously, because of the reddish-gold barrier around him, the three people's attacks were not aimed at him. They were all directed at Luo Qingtong. Now they would see how he died. The master at the peak of the Saint King realm directly attacked the Supreme Dean. The other two upper-level Saint King powerhouses attacked Luo Qingtong. This time, they wanted to see how the other party could block it. Previously, she could use the Grand Supreme Dean to block their attacks. Now, if she led the attack to him again, the other party could only wait for death. Of course, it did not matter if she did not lead the attack. The other party would still die. The group of people hated the Grand Supreme Dean in their hearts. If it were not for him, they might have already captured Luo Qingtong. There would not be so much trouble. They were also embarrassed by the other party. Fortunately, there was no one else here. Otherwise, if others saw that the three Saint King powerhouses were led by the nose by a young girl who had just entered the Holy Lord realm, they would probably laugh their heads off. The three people's attacks did not leave any leeway. In an instant, they blasted in front of Luo Qingtong and the Grand Supreme Dean. The blood-red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered violently. In the next second, the blood-red light in her eyes shattered. Under the intense consumption, the mental strength in her mind was exhausted, and her eye technique was temporarily deactivated. Boom! The light in Luo Qingtong's eyes was hollow. Her figure flitted past the two incoming attacks and appeared in front of the Grand Supreme Dean. Bang! The sword light in her hand swung out and collided with the attack coming at the Grand Supreme Dean. In an instant, Luo Qingtong spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body was blown away by the aftermath of the collision between the two attacks. Evil Dr. Kid. Seeing this, the Grand Supreme Headmaster was greatly alarmed and hurriedly wanted to rush over. However, in front of him, another superior Saint King from Celestial Palace had already rushed toward Luo Qingtong. Slut, you're finally going to fall into our hands. Looking at the young girl who was retreating, the superior Sage King Realm Protector of the Celestial Supreme Palace sneered and grabbed at Luo Qingtong. The attack in his hand was piercingly cold. It was obvious that he wanted to seriously injure Luo Qingtong and capture her. Seeing that the hand was about to land on Luo Qingtong's body, and the sharp light on it was about to blast Luo Qingtong. Boom! At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Luo Qingtong. One hand supported Luo Qingtong's slender waist, and in the next second, bang! Chapter 1823. Ming Zun. Seeing Yi Qianxian appear beside Luo Qingtong, the Grand Supreme Dean's expression changed from one of anxiety to one of joy. Yi Qianxian stood beside Luo Qingtong, hovering in the air. His eyes were chilling to the bone. The dark golden mask that covered his face seemed to have a flowing light flowing through it. His gaze swept across the bloodstain at the corner of the lips of the girl in his arms. In an instant, the raging flames within him were about to erupt like a volcano ambushed under a glacier. This woman was actually injured in front of him. These people from Celestial Palace must all die. He looked at the protector of Celestial Palace in front of him. The protector was startled when his hand was caught in his grasp. The man's aura was monstrous. Enveloped by the man's aura, the protector could not even control the flow of the aura within his body. It was as if he had been frozen. His hand was caught in Yi Qianxian's grasp, and he could not move at all. The strength of an upper-level Saint King seemed to be of no use in front of this man. The Celestial Palace protector was aghast. He looked at Yi Qianxian and shouted sternly, "Who are you?" "We are from Celestial Palace." Before he could finish his words, Yi Qianxian's eyes were cold. He had already broken the protector's hand. Crack, crack, crack. The crisp sound of bones cracking extended from the place where Yi Qianxian held the protector's hand. In the blink of an eye, the bones of the Celestial Palace protector were shattered into pieces. Not only that, But his head also exploded in an instant, turning into fragments. Boom! With a flick of Yi Qianxian's hand, the Celestial Palace Protector's body was smashed to the ground. Yi Qianxian raised his cold eyes and stared at the other two Celestial Palace Protectors not far away. Celestial Palace? The man's thin lips opened slightly, and his voice was low, containing infinite killing intent. The two Celestial Palace Protectors felt as though they had been splashed with a bucket of ice water when he stared at them. From the beginning to the end it was completely cold. How could there be such a powerhouse in the true Spill continent? The strength of the other party made them tremble from the bottom of their hearts. Just being stared at by him made him feel like he was suffocating. The two of them were Saint Kings, especially high-class Saint Kings and Peak Saint Kings. Even the Celestial Peak Palace Master had never given them such a feeling. What realm was the other party at? A Holy Spirit or a Holy Venerable? The two of them were horrified. They exchanged glances, and when Yi Qianxian raised his head to look at them, they abruptly leaped into the air. Split up. Return to the hidden world. Spread the news. Their figures flashed to the left and right, each in two different directions to avoid being chased by Yi Qianxian. However, as soon as they moved, a voice rang out. Boom! Yi Qianxian waved his sleeve, and in an instant, a powerful and terrifying force completely enveloped them. This force was so strong that they simply could not resist it. The two of them were horrified to the extreme. Their figures were frozen in midair, just as they were about to leave. At this time, they finally knew that Yi Qianren's strength was so strong that it was hard for them to estimate. Chapter 1824. When they thought of this, they were even more shocked. What made them even more shocked and incredulous was that they had never heard of anything related to Yi Qianren in the hidden world. It had to be known that most powerhouses of the outer realms would have to pass through the hidden world if they wanted to descend to the true Spill continent. With their strength, even if they didn't know much, they should still be able to gather some information about this person. But they had never heard of anything related to Yi Qianxian. It was as if he had never appeared. What did this mean? It meant that this person's strength was enough to cross the hidden world that was the barrier and gateway between the outer realms and the true Spill continent, and directly appear in the true Spill continent. If this was true, then this person's strength might be above their imaginations. After all, for an existence as powerful as the Star Alliance, the majority of powerhouses still had to rely on the hidden world to enter the true Spill continent. This man's strength, just how formidable was he? And the young girl that he was protecting in his arms? The two people's eyes turned to Luo Qingtong. They watched as she wiped the blood from her lips and coldly glared at them. Her eyes were filled with a murderous and bloodthirsty intent. Domineering and enchanting, stunning beyond compare. In an instant their vision darkened. They had actually offended such a young girl, and the person behind her was someone that even the entire hidden world combined couldn't resist. The two Celestial Palace Protectors felt waves of dizziness pass through their minds. They nearly fainted. If they knew that not only was Luo Qingtong's talent extraordinary and monstrous, but she also had a powerhouse like Yi Qianxian protecting her, they absolutely wouldn't have appeared to deal with her. But now, it was too late to say anything. As for the highest dean, he was even more surprised. He looked at Yi Qianxian. He didn't think that his strength would be far greater than what he had imagined. This person's origins were mysterious and unfathomable. A long time ago, he had already guessed that this person might be someone from the outer realms. Now he had only confirmed this. This underworld revered indeed had an extraordinary origin. As the Grand Supreme Dean thought this, on the other side, the two Celestial Palace Protectors were already screaming miserably. Previously, when they wanted to kill and capture the Grand Principal and Luo Qingtong, their momentum was so arrogant and domineering, and they were insufferably arrogant. At this moment he was screaming like a ghost. Where was the imposing manner and valiance from before? He was begging for mercy like a drowned rat. Under their feet, beams of power were eroding and destroying their bodies, turning their flesh and bones into ashes inch by inch. It looked as if his entire body had been ground to dust from his feet to his head. Yi Qianxian's eyes were cold. He deliberately controlled his strength, so that they would be reduced to ashes bit by bit during the extremely painful process. No, we were wrong. I beg you, please spare us. The two celestial palace protectors cried bitterly and begged for mercy. They couldn't bear such pain anymore. But Yi Qianqian's eyes didn't show the slightest bit of emotion. He was in a high position and held great power. He had seen this kind of attitude that changed from arrogance to deference. If he didn't have this kind of strength, would they beg for mercy? Chapter 1825. Thinking of the trace of blood at the corner of Luo Qingtong's lips just now, Yi Qianqian's eyes turned cold, and he became even more ruthless. With his strength, if he had not been so angry that he deliberately tortured these two people, how could he have let them live until now? He could have killed them with a raise of his hand, just like the Upper Saint King Realm Celestial Palace protector from before. The cries of the two Celestial Palace powerhouses became more and more shrill. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly narrowed. Where did you get this thing? She raised her hand and took something from the Peak Saint King Realm powerhouse. It was a pendant-like spirit artifact, flashing with light, trying to block Yi Qianqian's attack. These two Celestial Palace powerhouses had many such spirit artifacts, but they were completely useless against Yi Qianqian's attack. The reason why Luo Qingtong noticed this pendant was because it looked exactly the same as something on her body. Swish! Luo Qingtong raised her hand and pulled the pendant hanging around her neck. The two pendants were placed side by side, and they were exactly the same. The only difference was that the pendant hanging around Luo Qingtong's neck was much more exquisite, and its aura looked much more simple and profound. But other than that, the two pendants looked the same. Even the patterns and veins on them were exactly the same. Obviously, the pendant on the Peak Saint King Realm powerhouse was a replica of the pendant on Luo Qingtong's neck. And the pendant on Luo Qingtong's neck was one of the betrothal tokens between her and Yuan Mo. Her piece was left behind by Luo Jinghong. The pendant on the other party's neck was exactly the same as hers. It was obvious that someone had seen her pendant before, and had copied it accordingly. Luo Qingtong's eyes were sharp. And Yi Qianqian had already stopped attacking the Peak Saint King Realm powerhouse when Luo Qingtong took the pendant from his neck. The other party still had half of his body left. And the other Celestial Palace protector of the Upper Saint King Realm had long been turned into ashes by Yi Qianqian's corrosive light. Where did you get this pendant? Have you heard of Luo Jinghong? Luo Qingtong asked the Peak Saint King Realm powerhouse, who was struggling in pain. Tell me what you know, and I'll let you die quickly. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear what I'm going to do next. With the various interrogation techniques that Luo Qingtong knew in her previous life in the 24th century, the pain that this Peak Saint King would have to endure would be 100 times worse than what she was experiencing now. It's best not to challenge her patience. As for Luo Qingtong, she never bothered to negotiate terms and compromise with her enemies. If the other party dared to use this to threaten her, then she would definitely let the other party know what it was like to live a life worse than death. Hearing this, the Peak Saint King Realm Master's body trembled violently. He did want to use this to threaten Luo Qingtong to let him go. But now that Luo Qingtong said this, he instantly gave up this idea in despair. After all, for Yi Qianqian, it was too easy to make him live a life worse than death. He couldn't threaten the other party at all, so he might as well say it out loud. I'll talk. As he spoke, he told her about the pendant. It turned out that he had picked up this pendant. Chapter 1826. Because he saw that the pendant's style was good and its grade was not low, he took it with him. As for that person's name, he did not know, nor did he know if it was the person Luo Qingtong was looking for. Hearing this, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. Beast Taming King Valley? This matter was actually related to that place? Luo Qingtong had been paying attention to this Peak Saint King Realm Master, so she could naturally see that the other party was not lying. In other words, the person being chased by Beast Taming King Valley was most likely Luo Jinghong. Even if it was not, she was afraid that it had something to do with him. Otherwise, There would never be a replica of the pendant on her. While Luo Qingtong was thinking, Yi Qianxian had already raised his hand and killed the Peak Saint King Realm Master, who kept begging for mercy. He looked down at Luo Qingtong. The anger in his eyes had not completely disappeared. This woman had asked clearly what she wanted to ask. Was it his turn now? Yi Qianxian's eyes were cold. When he tore space to come, he saw Luo Qingtong blocking in front of the Grand Principal through the vibrating space ripples. This woman actually dared to put herself in danger. Luo Qi. His voice was dangerous. Luo Qingtong was thinking about something at this moment, but suddenly heard Yi Qianxian's voice that seemed to contain infinite anger. And she suddenly had an idea. She came back to her senses and looked at the suppressed anger in the man's eyes. In a flash, she probably thought of the reason. In an instant, she held her forehead. Oh, why is my head so dizzy? As she spoke, she fell into Yi Qianxian's arms. Of course, she pretended to faint. It was better than this man settling accounts with her in anger, right? In fact, she was only slightly injured. When she blocked in front of the Grand Principal, the sword had already dissipated most of the attack power. The aftermath of the attack did not hurt her deeply. But this man most likely would not listen to her explanation. Luo Qingtong thought about it and decided to pretend to faint. It was better to make this man feel distressed than to make him angry. It was easy to get wrinkles when you were angry. She was doing this for his own good. Luo Qingtong was lying in Yi Qianxian's arms. She felt the man's arm tighten, and then he rushed out. She stuck out her tongue in her heart. It was quite fun to be mischievous once in a while. This feeling of being cared for and protected by others was really not bad. Luo Qingtong leaned against Yi Qianxian's chest and rested her head on his chest. Unknowingly, she fell asleep amidst his steady heartbeat. She had expended a lot of energy this time. First, she had fought the Breeze Pavilion Master, then she had fought the people of Celestial Palace. She had almost exhausted all of her strength, not to mention that she had already used up all of her mental strength. Now that she was in Yi Qianxian's arms, she knew that she was safe. She wasn't afraid that the man would come to settle the score with her, so she immediately fell asleep. This was something that was hard to imagine in the past. At least before she transmigrated and met Yi Qianxian, Luo Qingtong had never thought that she would one day fall asleep in a man's arms after expending all of her energy in a great battle. Usually, she would find a secluded and hidden place to recuperate before appearing in front of others. But now, with Yi Qianxian by her side, she didn't seem to need these things. The man would protect her well. Chapter 1827. Luo Qingtong slept for close to an entire day. She was prepared to pretend to faint, and then go back to Yuhuang City, and pretend that she was fine after waking up. This way, she would be able to get away from Yi Qianxian's anger, and they wouldn't be too worried. However, she didn't expect that because she was too tired and Yi Qianxian's embrace was too warm and safe, she unknowingly fell asleep. When she woke up, she found that her surroundings were in chaos. Old Man Luo, Suyu Su Xiaoxiao, and the people from Tianxia were all surrounding her, filling up the entire room she was in. They were all looking at her with red eyes. As for Su Xiaoxiao, when she saw that she had woken up, she almost burst into tears. "Boss, you're finally awake." Ever since Su Xiaoxiao decided to be Luo Qingtong's personal combat alchemist, her crybaby personality changed a lot. She was showing signs of going back to her original self. Luo Qingtong looked at her eyes that were as red as a rabbit's from crying, and then looked at the people surrounding her. Her mind instantly went blank. Then she remembered that she had pretended to faint yesterday and then she pretended to fall asleep. So, did they all think that something had happened to her? Luo Qingtong thought about it, and her lips instantly twitched. Damn, this was a big misunderstanding. She was thinking about it when she suddenly heard a hoarse voice. "Alright, she's fine now. You guys can leave first." Following this voice, Luo Qingtong turned around and saw Yi Qianxian sitting not too far away from her bed. The man's appearance didn't change much from before, but his eyes were bloodshot. It was obvious that he had been watching over her for a long time. Seeing her look over, Yi Qianxian's expression was indifferent, but the hand holding Luo Qingtong's hand slightly tightened. Everyone nodded and left when they heard this. They were relieved that Luo Qingtong woke up and was fine. A group of people was indeed not conducive to Luo Qingtong's cultivation. With that thought in mind, everyone got up and left. Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi reminded Luo Qingtong to have a good rest and not worry about other things. After that, they also left. Luo Qingtong laughed dryly in response. This time, she had no choice but to pretend to be sick. Oh my god, I've gone too far. Soon, only Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian were left in the room. She peeked at Yi Qianxian's expression, wondering if he had noticed that she had pretended to faint. Was this the calm before the storm, or had he not noticed? As Luo Qingtong was thinking, Yi Qianxian stood up. Hungry? He looked at Luo Qingtong. No. Luo Qingtong was about to say that she wasn't hungry, but her stomach growled at this moment. Luo Qingtong looked at her disappointing stomach. At this time the enemy's situation was unknown, so why was she growling? However, she had slept for almost a day, so she was indeed hungry. Cough. I'm hungry. Luo Qingtong nodded. Yi Qianxian responded and then walked out. Luo Qingtong looked at his back and blinked. This man was so calm. He shouldn't have exposed himself, right? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.